Senate Chamber. Signed. 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 Senate Chamber. Sound. Committee Room 30. 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 Sound.
Okay, colleagues, good morning. Could I welcome members to today's meeting for the Committee for the Economy and remind members that this meeting will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings. I'm going to start by taking apologies, which I have from David Honeyford, and we're expecting other members to join us. We are joined online by Padraig Delargy. We'll move then to item 2, declarations of interest. Members, any?
Yep.
Okay, item 3, members, there's a number of issues I want to raise under Chairperson's business. First, item 3.1 is the resignation of Gary Middleton, MLA, who was our former Deputy Chair of this committee. Are the committee content to write to Gary wishing him well and a speedy recovery?
Great.
Great, yeah.
Padraig?
Chair, absolutely, and just to thank Gary for a service to this committee, but the people of Derry as well. And from since I started, Gary was really brilliant as somebody you could always turn to, and as somebody who really truly tried to represent people right across our city and our constituency. So I want to thank him on a personal level. He was very supportive to me when I started in the role. So I want to thank him for that, and to thank him for his service to this committee and to serving the people of our area.
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. Item 3.2, Members' Employment Rights Bill. In tabled items, members, is a joint letter from 22 business organisations in respect of the anticipated content of the Good Jobs Employment Right Bill. Members content that we write to the department seeking an update on the expected timing of the introduction of the bill and site of the policy paper, which was reportedly agreed at the executive.
And could we also include, Chair, in that letter huge concern to the department and the minister that 22 business organisations have voiced such considerable concern? Like, they're not just throwaway businesses; they're major representative organisations, and I think we should be hearing more clarity from the minister on those concerns that were outlined.
Anybody else? Anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would echo that as well. It really is. It's to the wire now, really. I was concerned about the letter because there was various aspects of the bill that were all fairly significant, that there were concerns about. And they spoke as if there was a bill actually in place, and none of us actually know what the content of that bill is, and whether their concerns are justified or not justified. But they certainly are. Anybody that is concerned in the absence of a bill has every right to be so. And particularly business bodies and business organisations that are experiencing such tough times as the cost of living and cost of doing business crisis, and also the concerns of workers and the expectation of workers and their rights to be maintained, and for them to have the same rights as other employees throughout the United Kingdom, and they're already far behind, and there's an expectation that this bill would have been here at the beginning of the year, and we're now past Easter and into the final throngs of this mandate until the summer recess, and it's nowhere to be seen.
Patrick, did you want in on that?
I did, Chair, and note the letter and the concerns that have been raised. I mean, the outline proposals of this bill have been in place for 2 years now. That there clearly has been significant progress on it. But as a committee, we have consistently asked for legislation to be brought forward in a way that means that it is as effective as possible and that it's scrutinised as well as it can be. So I think that we, have to welcome the fact. Can we ask for an update? Absolutely. I think we should be doing that. But actually welcome the fact that it is progressing, that it's the most significant piece of workers' rights legislation in a generation. And actually the fact that that has to be by the department, scrutinised properly, looked at properly before it's brought to committee stage, and indeed that the opportunity then is there for us to scrutinise that and to make any changes, any updates to that as we see necessary as a committee. But I think in the overarching picture, the detail of that is still to be decided and it's to be voted through the Assembly. So acknowledge the concerns, but I think we have to welcome the progress that has been made on this really significant piece of legislation.
Thank you, Patrick. Diana.
Thank you, and I do welcome the letter, but I think it raises an issue, a fundamental concern, that if these trusted trade organisations and bodies are raising this concern at this stage, that I would like to hear back from the Minister of how she is going to address that, because it's creating uncertainty in the business sector, and I think we need clarity, we need timelines. I think we need more engagement, and I've consistently put that to the Minister in going back to the original consultation, which I do not feel really was conducted in the correct manner to achieve the best possible understanding of what the Minister is trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I think the major concern from my perspective is that we were informed that this bill would be introduced into the Assembly in December of last year. We're now sitting in April, and going by the Minister's comments to the media last night that the drafting process still has not been completed, and is still unable to give a date under which that will be done. So I think in the absence of clarity from the Minister, that's why businesses are so concerned, because they have been waiting a long time to see what the final proposals are. And I think that's reflected in this. So I just hope that the Minister is able to provide the committee with an undertaking that she will have this bill completed, drafted, and with executive colleagues for introduction as soon as possible. Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think the reason why there's been this media attention on it is because there's now panic that we don't have this bill. But I very firmly feel that the place that where you create a bill for everyone is in this assembly. It's the various stages. It's in the committee. It needs to come for us to be able to create a bill that works for everyone. So we definitely need to put concerns forward. And I don't think it's helpful saying, as legislators, that we shouldn't be dealing with this. We need it now, and we need to move it forward.
If colleagues are content, then we'll write to the department just to try and seek a definite timeline for when the process of drafting of the bill will be complete, and when the Minister hopes to have an executive paper with colleagues. Are members content with that? Okay, thank you. Item 3 then is Budget 26-27. The department briefed on budget pressures for 26-27 on the 10th of March. However, no final budget allocation decisions have been made by the Minister at this stage. The Committee for Finance has nonetheless asked for a response from the Committee for the Economy. Members content that we respond providing the relevant papers and indicating that the Minister has not made a decision in relation to budget allocations at this stage. Members content with that? Okay, thank you. Just one other item, members, I wish to raise under Chair's business, and that's the front page of today's Irish News, which is entitled "Minister Went Against Invest Northern Ireland Advice on Cost Implications of US Trip." This is a story by Conor Coyle, who has revealed that on 2 occasions the Minister went against official advice to attend events organised by former Sinn Féin Finance Minister Martin O'Muir in the United States of America at the cost to the public purse of £47,000. I would be keen to get details from the department as to why they went against official advice from Invest Northern Ireland on this important issue, and why the special advisor to the Minister requested that a programme was built around an event organised by her former Sinn Féin colleague. Members wish to raise anything on this? Diana?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is concerning because I think the Minister has demonstrated she has gone against the advice from Invest NI. It would be important to speak again to Invest, or speak to Invest NI. We also need to speak to them about the other Cantor Fitzgerald matter. But the fact that the Minister has gone ahead and arranged an itinerary specifically around this, with a connection to her former colleague and Minister Martin O'Muir, and his subsequent appointment to the board of Invest NI, that's really troubling. That points to political interference. I think we just need to know more about what's going on.
Deputy Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And I would agree with what Diana said, and just add to it that if we're asking why she went against the advice, can we also see what the advice was and the reasons why they actually were advising that this trip isn't taken in a ministerial capacity?
Other colleague wish to...
I'm afraid I haven't seen the story, so I'm going to have to look into that and come back to you. But if there are queries around it, then questions need to be asked.
Patrick?
Yeah, Chair, I suppose from my perspective, look, this is a very important event, and one of the Minister's key economic visions is actually to realise regional balance and to develop regional balance. This event is one that's particularly significant for Derry and Donegal, where we know that there has been a history of underinvestment, and actually where North American companies have been particularly significant in bringing that strength of investment. When I talk to businesses in my area, one of the things which they continually raise with us as a reason why they invested in the first place, and a reason why they continue to invest in our region, is about the willingness of ministers here to engage with them directly. So I think that is a very important point. They have continually raised the accessibility of ministers to engage with them, to promote that, and to promote our regions. So I can't speak for the minister, but I would imagine that was a key reason in determining this and actually in driving forward the Minister's agenda, which we have, as a committee, have all agreed that regional balance is a key priority. So I think that it's imperative that we actually promote that, not just in word, but in action and in deed. And this is clearly an example of when the Minister has done that.
Thank you. Yeah, like Sinead, I haven't seen the article, but based on what's been raised, I'm happy to seek further clarification and answers.
Thank you, Chair. No, this whole thing stinks. When we have a Minister and her Invest NI officials suggesting that it would not be prudent for the Minister to attend this specific event, given that her department had spent 33 grand some months previously to go to both New York and Boston, to then find the Minister's SPAD and the Minister herself trying to find a way around getting another jet trip to Boston to attend her party colleague, former party colleague, Marcin O'Mullier's specific event. I'm not commenting on whether or not the event is a good event or not. It suggests in the article that it is. But Invest NI said that they were well represented at the event. They even give the Minister the option to do a video appearance to address those delegates. I would be concerned about this. I think we need to have more detail regarding what communications there was between the Minister's SPAD and the event organisers and the Minister and the organisers. And I think Diana's point is very valid. What was the rationale then for the appointments to the Northern Ireland Board? Because that itself stinks when we have a Minister that is ensuring that she can get to her former party colleague's event in Boston, and then the following year the Minister appoints that former colleague to the board at £15,000 a year. I think we need to also understand the rationale for those boards appointments. That's maybe a physical meeting that we need, as Dan has maybe mentioned, but I would be more than supportive of ensuring that we get Invest NI and explain rationale behind this.
Any other colleague have anything at this? No, okay, so are members content that we contact the department seeking all information in relation to this event, and Invest NI could come along to committee to explain their advice and how often or not it's overruled by the Minister? Are members content with that? Okay, agreed. We then move to draft minutes, members, which are at page 7. Are members content that they're a true and accurate reflection of our deliberations? Okay. Item 5, if there's no matters. Sorry.
One point on the issue of Cantor.
Yes, sir.
There is a summary of some of the remarks that I made, but what I thought was a substantive omission from my remarks was the point that we need to get an update from Invest NI in relation to that matter. That's been left out. I don't know why, but there was a proposed action from some of my observations on that occasion.
Sorry, Chair, my recollection just was that the committee hadn't made it. I remember the member saying that, he definitely said that, but I thought that it wasn't an actual agreement by the committee at that point. We were going to talk about that today.
Sure, but the point is that I did raise the issue of Invest NI, and I did raise the logic of seeking further clarification from the organisation in relation to the matter, and that's what's been omitted.
Members content we add to the minutes Mr. Kearney's remarks from...
Agreed, that was recollected, yeah.
So are members content that we amend the minutes to reflect Mr. Kearney's remarks? Okay. Matters arising, members, then we'll go to item 6, which was then in relation to the issue of Cantor Fitzgerald and the proposal that Invest Northern Ireland be invited to committee. So I'm going to open up on that. Declan, are you content then that we invite Invest Northern Ireland along on that? Was that what you're...
I think what we could do, Phil, in the first instance, is to write to Invest NI and ask if they have further detail that they can share with the committee, and on the basis of confirming that that is the case, then they should be invited in to present evidence. If they're indicating that they've nothing further to advise us on based upon the material that we've received, including the redactions, then I think the matter can rest. But I would write in the first instance on the basis that that's a logical next step to perhaps bringing the agency in to provide evidence.
Patrick.
Yeah, I think that's a prudent step to take. What we want to do is to ensure that we actually have an effective session. I think that this has clearly been an issue which has rumbled on in the committee. The Minister has told us very clearly that there are commercial sensitivities around this, and I would imagine that Invest will have exactly the same to say. Therefore, I don't think that it would be an appropriate step to invite Invest in without having that clarification first. I'm happy to do so if they think that there's something more that they can add to this. But really what we should be doing in the first instance is taking that step. But also, I think adding to that is asking Invest whether or not this has been something which has put other businesses off investing. Because what we've heard time and time again is that businesses are fearful of talking out when we have instances like this. We heard from Invest a number of weeks ago around the fact that many businesses don't want to actually talk around the benefits that they're receiving from the Windsor Framework Agreement because of political views and so on. So I think that it would be pragmatic to ask Declan's question, but to also ask around whether or not this has actually had an impact on other businesses. There are commercial sensitivities here. As the Economy Committee, what we should be doing is actually ensuring that businesses feel supported to invest here. And I think we need clarification on whether or not this actually puts businesses off investing here.
Any other colleague on this? Deputy Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think what Padraig's saying is quite anecdotal, and I don't know that Invest NI can speak on behalf of all businesses as to whether or not that they think that they're going to invest here just on the back of all of this. But again, just coming back to just the heavy redactions that we have here, we haven't got a lot of information. I don't really feel like we're that much further along. To keep putting it off, to write, to wait till something comes back before inviting people in. Surely we could write to them, invite them in, and they could be given a written briefing hand in hand with their invitation in, rather than dragging it on weeks after weeks after weeks, because this has got a lot of attention, and I think we need answers as a committee.
Yes, I just want to address the minutes of the meeting where the withdrawal happened. I mean, 300 jobs is significant investment, and for an investment of that significance, 58 words does concern me that's on the record. So I seek more clarity on, is that the standard we're working to? Is that what happens in other commercially sensitive negotiations, that you get such brevity? So I'd like to put that on the record and get more detail on that. Thank you.
I suppose I would really concur with you, Diane, because I just think this has taken up far too much space in our committee. It's been extremely contentious from it was first raised, and there hasn't been a lot of clarity. And what we have in front of us now doesn't give us very much more than we had, I suppose, in day one. And I think it's time that we got to the bottom of it and put it to bed and move on. We have a lot of work to do, in this committee going forward. And I just think that just bring Invest NI in, get it a good conversation around it, and put it to bed so that we can move on with our work and not keep being dragged back to the same issues which we're none the wiser of, to be honest.
I mean, like exactly the same. It's becoming quite tedious. She said something in the meeting, and some people seem to know what it is, but it hasn't been said outright. And there are so many speculations about it. Was it something to do with Palestine? Is it because the former chief executive is part of Trump's cabinet? Like, there are all these different elements that you can speculate about, and it's taking up so much time. So we of course, if there's a lot of jobs as a committee, we need to understand why and how we mitigate against that in the future. But it does feel like this is just becoming political drama when, as Sinead says, we've got so much else to be getting on with. So get Invest NI in. If they're not going to answer, write to Cantor Fitzgerald and ask them why they pulled out. Like, we just need to move on with it.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for members' indulgence in this, because I do believe it is very important when we're talking about the loss of 300 highly paid jobs. And I would expect any member to act like I have acted if somebody was to come to them to say that 300 jobs were lost that we weren't aware of, that there was concerns around the Minister's position that potentially lost those jobs, that I would ask the very Minister and her department those pertinent questions. The problem I have is since I asked the questions, there has been no clarity from the Minister on the exact rationale. Diana makes a very interesting point, and it's something that should concern everybody, because if it is a case that where 300 jobs are lost, where 2 weeks previously the Minister met with them in this building and were happy with the investment and its progress, and they were about to launch a recruitment campaign, that 2 weeks later the meeting would happen in New York and it's off the table. And all we have is a 58-word meeting note. No rationale. I think that should concern everybody. This has the potential to be the largest loss of FDI investment in the history of Invest NI. Now, we've had a lot of freedom of information, and I do beg pardon for the committee that we've had to take up so much time because it's a lot of reading. But look, talk about being none the wiser. This is some of the FOI. Like, how on earth can anybody get to the bottom of what is exactly going on with foreign direct investment whenever it's so heavily redacted? I agree with some of the sentiment expressed. Let's get the Invest NI in, let's ask the pertinent questions, let's try to get to the bottom of this, let's ensure that we don't hide behind obfuscation on particular words, let's get to the facts, and let's ensure that Northern Ireland is a place that everybody can feel comfortable in investing in.
Coming back to Declan.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, it was myself that introduced the logic of engaging directly with Invest NI. To repeat what I said at the previous meeting, it's Invest NI who carries out these negotiations with foreign investors. It's Invest NI which is the lead body which will close on a negotiation. So if we can get past the hyperbole, there have not been 300 jobs lost because 300 jobs were not actually put on the table. Cantor, when they received a letter of offer from Invest NI, did not confirm that they were prepared to proceed with the letter of offer and to invest in the to proceed with the investment of the job. So I think we need to correct the point that we didn't have an investment. What we had was a letter of offer that was not then accepted by Cantor. And in fact, Cantor, to repeat again what I said before, on the 7th of May, referred to the mutual agreement with Invest NI not to proceed with the negotiation, which could have landed a potential 300 jobs. So the key for me in all of this is let's set aside the hyperbole, let's set aside the assumption and the misperception. Let's engage directly with Invest NI, and I agree with you. Where there are redactions that do not give us a full and clear picture, then let's ask Invest NI why that is the case, and are they in a position to disclose what lies behind the redactions, if in fact that does not compromise their ability to proceed with their lead role in relation to carrying out negotiations with foreign investors.
Thank you, Declan. Padraig?
Yeah, well, look, I agree with what's been said. I think in the interest, as other members have mentioned, of the fact that this has taken up significant committee time, I do think that it would be pragmatic to write to Invest to understand what information they can provide to the committee and what they can't. I think understanding the scope of what they can do is a pragmatic step prior to inviting them in. So I do keep that proposal on the table that we should do that. I'm also interested in the information, and Jonathan has mentioned that he has received this information. I have had no clarity on where that information has come from. So I think it would be helpful to the committee to understand where that information has come from so that we can get a better picture of exactly what the issue that we're dealing with and try and get a better understanding of the entire picture here.
So I'm going to try and draw a line under this and try and get some consensus. So with the exception of 2 members, I do think it is the view of the committee that we do invite Invest Northern Ireland in and get this done and dusted. What Invest and I are able to provide to the committee and what questions they can or can't answer is going to be a matter for Invest Northern Ireland, but that will allow the committee to flesh out all of the issues. And I do realise that there are two members who think we should write to them in the first instance, but my concern is that this drags this process out. So I am going to suggest to the committee that we do go ahead and make the invitation, but obviously members may wish to dissent from that. Declan?
Well, it's not actually a point of dissension, Philip, and it's simply to correct you on the point of nuance. Okay. Don't pigeonhole me as someone who is opposing the idea of bringing in Invest NI. It was myself who raised this idea originally. I simply suggested that there may be merit. We're going to have to write to Invest NI in any case to invite them in to provide evidence to the committee. I'm simply saying that in the process of writing to them, let's establish from them if they have further information to disclose. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, Invest NI is the body, the agency that can in fact bring the clarity to this. If we're not getting that through correspondence, then clearly we should have Invest NI sitting and meeting with members of the committee. So I want to correct that particular point.
I apologise, I didn't mean to pigeonhole you there. Padraig, you didn't want back in, so I'm going to put to the meeting members that we do invite Invest Northern Ireland in, to draw a line under that. I'm happy to move to a vote if we need
Agreed.
to.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, it may be worth just to send them what questions we're going to ask ahead of the briefing as well, so that they can prepare.
And give them a general idea.
Yeah, so it's not.
Can I ask? We in the previous point we'd also agreed for Invest NI to talk to us about the trip to Boston. Are we going to do that in the same session, or is that I'm in your hands just how we proceed?
Well, we can see who is available. Obviously, we'll need to see Kieran Donoghue in relation to the latter issue, and Anne Beggs because she was in attendance at the meeting. But the Invest Northern Ireland official who drafted that advice is based in America, so it might be slightly different officials. Okay, right. Thank you, colleagues, for your patience and indulgence on that important issue. We're going to move then to item 7, which is Community Energy Northern Ireland, oral and written.
Here, just to go back.
Yeah, sorry.
To that point.
Yes, sir.
So, I agree with the point that Kate made. I think it was pertinent one around agreeing the questions that we actually asked to Invest ahead of that. And one of the ones that we had suggested was around trying to establish the impact on other businesses of this. So I think that prior to sending that invite, which is obviously going to be an outcome of this committee meeting, I do think that this is the time to actually establish those questions, what they are, and try and get a better understanding of that. So I think we should do that now.
Okay, well, do you want to start with the questions that you may wish to ask, Padraig?
Yes. So the questions which I would like to ask are around, as I've just mentioned, the impact on other investment. So that is the first question that I would like to ask, is around the impact on other investment of this, and indeed the scope of what Invest can or cannot answer in this committee, whether or not there remain commercial sensitivities, and indeed, as Declan has said, whether or not they can provide any more information on those redactions or not, because I think that if they weren't able to do so, inviting them back into committee might not be the fruitful exercise that we think it may be. And I'm happy if other members have any questions that they want to add to that, but those are, from my end, the two key pertinent ones.
Just so we're clear, members can provide questions in advance if they wish. I will not be providing questions in advance. It's the responsibility of us as elected members to decide which we may and may want to ask Invest Northern Ireland. Obviously, it's their right to answer what questions they do or do not want to answer. But if there are members who want to provide questions either now or in advance of that briefing, they can do that. Kate.
And the reason why I proposed that is because we have received lots of heavily redacted information. So based on that, I was assuming that the answers would be that at this time we don't have this or we can't answer. So if we provide the questions, I really just want to draw a line under this. And so if we have the questions to them, then we're not going to get that we weren't getting on answers. So that was my proposal. That's why I proposed it.
I suppose from my perspective, having Invest NI sitting here before us would give me an opportunity to have them step through the entire process the entire engagement that they made with Cantor Fitzgerald to give us a time frame when it was hot, when it went cold, and what happened in between, and so it's more than questions, Padraig. Really, it's actually just I want to understand the investment, I suppose, journey that the department and Invest NI and the Minister was engaged in, and just we didn't close the deal. And what happened for that the deal wasn't? That's literally everybody around this committee table just wants to know, why did we not close the deal? Is there something that we did wrong? And if we do know that, and there is greater clarity in and around that, then what do we do to mitigate the same happening in another occasion? And I just think that's good governance, and it's transparency, and it's something now, because there has been, I suppose, a lot of nuances and everything else around this particular investment that didn't happen, that we all need to know what did happen, and redacted sheets coming out actually makes us all the more curious in order to find out just the truth behind the blackness that we're currently experiencing.
Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and I would agree with your sentiment. I just wanted to say, I don't agree with this sitting here to force us to have pre-agreed questions to try to curb our potential questions that we would have. As Sinead said, it's the inquisitive nature of, we don't know what's going on and we want to have them in to have evidence to be able to ask whatever we want. So I don't think that trying to agree a restrictive amount of questions in advance is the right approach.
Well, we're agreed, and if any member does have anything in advance that they want to provide to them, but I imagine that Invest Northern Ireland will be keen to know that we want to go through the entirety of the process, and we'll do that. Okay, item 7 then is Community Energy Northern Ireland oral and written evidence. Can I invite forward my friends and colleagues? So members, page 291 is the clerk's covering note, and also the Community Energy Northern Ireland briefing paper at page 301. I'm delighted to welcome John McMullen, member of the Community Energy Northern Ireland, and Ford is also a member. Tizina O'Hara, apologies if my pronunciation is poor, member of the Community Energy, and Karen Arbuckle, who is also a member. I'm delighted to welcome colleagues to committee here today, and very happy to open up with your opening evidence to the committee, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the invitation to come to the committee today. We do appreciate your attention to community energy in Northern Ireland, and we're glad to be here with our other important parties, the GBE Energy Group and representatives of the department. We all have a role to play in this matter, and we look forward to finding out just how those organisations will work together for the benefit of community energy in Northern Ireland, and we trust that the processes will be fully transparent for communities to understand how the support is going to work. We are 4 of the founder members of Community Energy Northern Ireland, CNE for short. Each of us has a long history of involvement in community energy here, in renewable energy generation, both wind and solar, involved in projects rooted in community and made viable by the former NIRO scheme. As you know, new entries for the ROCs concluded in 2016, and since that time there has been a real dearth of new community initiatives here. CNE grew out of a long period of work to raise the profile of community energy, lobbying for government to recognise the importance of it, its value, and act to promote it. Despite commitments made in the Northern Ireland Energy Strategy of 2021, there is still a lack of departmental support for new community energy initiatives here. CNE is an umbrella group for community energy practitioners and enthusiasts. We show what can be achieved. We've proved that it works with wonderful outcomes. We provide a united voice. We give advice and support, we make information available, and we continue to lobby for support for the sector. As time is limited today, my colleagues will cover 3 key topics. Firstly, the very limited growth of the sector here compared to other regions of the UK and in Ireland. Then the many benefits that community energy can bring. And finally, pointing a way forward for growth of this important sector here in Northern Ireland. In current world circumstances, this is surely a time to focus on energy security and engage the whole population in energy matters. Karen.
Okay. This review was a desktop exercise that we did because comparative figures don't exist officially in Northern Ireland for community energy. Northern Ireland has the least developed community energy sector and is the only jurisdiction yet to clearly establish a practical, legal and financial framework for citizen and community energy. Across all regions, community energy growth closely reflects the strength and consistency of government support. Scotland and Wales show the strongest outcomes due to long-term national programme, while Northern Ireland has minimal capacity and limited structured support. Community energy capacity in Great Britain totals around 411 megawatts, with Scotland accounting for over 100 megawatts. Scotland is widely recognised as the UK leader, supported by stable policy instruments and the Community and Renewable Energy Scheme, known as CARES. CARES provides funding, technical and development support, mentoring and shared ownership mechanisms, and underpins Scotland's target of 2 gigawatt of community and locally owned energy by 2030. Long-term policy certainly has been a key factor in that growth. Wales, similarly, has approximately 37 megawatt of community energy capacity and a clear target of 1.5 gigawatt by 2030. Delivery is supported through the Welsh Government Energy Service, which provide technical support and access to finance, including capital and development funding through the Development Bank of Wales. England has the largest installed capacity of 275 megawatt, but historically has taken a more fragmented approach. While coordination is expected to improve through initiatives such as GB Energy's local power plan, England has lacked the long-term delivery structures seen in other devolved administrations. Given the single electricity market, the Republic of Ireland is also a key comparator. Ireland's Renewable Electricity Support Scheme includes dedicated community auctions, targeted financial supports and mandatory community benefit funds, contributing to €2 per megawatt hour to local initiatives. And they have a Sustainable Energy Communities very vast project with 1,000 communities now engaged in energy action as a result. By contrast, Northern Ireland has no official data on community energy capacity. Estimates that we have from our own knowledge and experience as practitioners on the ground, there's only around 3 megawatts. That's a very stark difference to our other regions. Delivered by approximately 10 organisations. This limited scale reflects the absence of dedicated policy framework, minimal financial support and prolonged periods of political instability. Despite these challenges, though, Northern Ireland has a major opportunity. By learning from the established models in Scotland and Wales and Ireland, Northern Ireland can rapidly design and implement a fit-for-purpose community energy policy, enabling communities to contribute meaningfully to the energy security, affordability and net zero goals.
When we talk about the why we should support the growth of community energy in Northern Ireland, the starting point is simple, is because people care about energy now more than before. It's actually a daily conversation around the kitchen tables and in our street actually. So, honourable members, community energy will give those same people a meaningful role in shaping the transition. And remember, a transition without people will never be just or fair. Not just and we will treat these people not just as bill payers or consumers, but as active partners with a stake in the outcome. So when communities are trusted and resourced, they consistently show innovation, resilience, and the ability to deliver practical solutions. We have seen it in the past. We can see it even in the future. So the benefits are wide-ranging. Economically, community ownership keeps wealth circulating locally, creates jobs, reduces bills, and generates long-term income for community priorities. Socially, it strengthens participation. It builds trust in new infrastructure and increases local capacity to take on other challenges. Environmentally, of course, it cuts emissions through local renewable generation and energy efficiency programs, helping us, citizens, move towards net zero in a way that is fair, democratic, and rooted in place. So community energy is not just about the productions of clean energy. It's about local development opportunity that delivers economic, social, and environmental value far beyond the efforts that we want you to invest in.
Chair and committee members, thanks for the opportunity to come and speak to you today and give evidence based on our experience. It's an exciting time for community energy. The Great British Energy Local Power Plan is a landmark moment for community energy across the UK, with £1 billion to spend in investments, looking for 1,000 investments across the UK. We're keen that we don't lose out on that. If you were thinking of community energy as a bus, we're sitting in the back seat. We could be in the front seat or could be driving it. We need that kind of ambition, which we're not experiencing. You'll get it from practitioners. We're not really getting it in policy terms, and that's the challenge that we face. We believe, in our experience in research, is community energy is conceptually embedded, but structurally absent from the Northern Ireland energy strategy, and that needs to change, and it needs your support and your engagement to be able to do that. If we look at what's happening in terms of departmental support, there's very limited evidence of concrete community energy delivery. One of the things that we have no idea what the department might say, but they did a very exciting thing in relation to investing 1.66 million in colleges. That's colleges who have significant CapEx budgets. Why are they not spending their own money on that? Now, you guys will know this because you've got constituencies. You're looking at areas, whether it's pockets of deprivation in rural communities or whether it's large estates where there's deprivation in more urban areas. If those PV panels and batteries were put on low-income homes, think of the value that gives. Lower costs for those low-income homes, lower drain of our electricity resources, less pollution. This fits together, but it needs the ambition and the vision to see that. That's not the experience we have at the moment, and that's where we'd like to see you encourage the department to shift its focus. In our view, community energy has probably moved to being defined and being explored, but that's halfway through the period of the mid-term review of the policy. The community energy framework is a great opportunity, and the department has moved on commissioning its production. But this is halfway through the strategy. This is a first day thing, this is a first year thing, and we're not there, but we are where we are with it. Our call would be that this should be co-designed, not delivered by third parties coming in to tell us what they found all over the UK and what it might look like. We'd want our structures, our folk, our organisations to be able to deliver than that. Northern Ireland's community energy sector is the least developed in terms of scale across the UK. Some very interesting and exciting initiatives in that. But without a comprehensive strategy, funding programmes, technical support, local communities cannot benefit or participate in this energy transition, and we need to be acutely aware of that. Our strategy is driven towards those big energy providers, whether that's the electricity providers or others, not the community engagement. It's a fundamental change we're asking for. So we have an ask. Now we've supplied you with both a paper and a summary paper, and I'll just read out the ask. We would ask the Economy Committee to take a particular interest in departmental actions to support the growth of community energy, ensure that there is a plan with timeframes and targets in place, and that the department engage with SENI and support it to build a growing network of Northern Ireland community energy initiatives and organisations. Chairman, thanks, and members, thanks for taking the time to listen to us.
Thank you very much indeed, and I really appreciate that and your passion for this really important subject, something that I'm particularly interested in. I have the privilege of representing North Belfast, but it's one of the most socio-economically challenged constituencies in Northern Ireland, and energy bills and a lack of insulation, older homes and poverty is something that continues to be a massive, massive concern for the people that I represent. And I think that having community energy provision is a really important opportunity to try and tackle that. So I'm just keen to try and get any experiences that you have. Whenever people originally think of community energy programs, they tend to think of more rural settings, and they are important. But as somebody who represents inner city constituency, are there any examples that you've seen in other parts of the UK or in the Republic of Ireland that have seen inner cities benefit from these projects? Okay, well maybe I'll quickly answer it, so others might give you examples. We have a huge number of roofs in Northern Ireland, and they are underused in relation to lifting PV and putting in battery storage. That in itself makes really, really good sense, in addition to the point you make about rurality, where you can get access to wind or larger PV arrays. These are all opportunities there, but what we want to see is local ownership, local engagement. We don't want the money coming from these initiatives to go offshore, to go into pension funds or global investors, because they are very attractive. We want to see them reinvested in our communities so they can use them to better benefit your constituents and their community members.
Yeah. And I think there are a number of aspects to community energy.
Yes.
One of them is generation, but another one is energy efficiency and reducing demand. And I think that's where, it can be the case that when we've been involved in helping in a project in North Belfast recently, as you're probably aware of, and it has been really getting people engaged with the idea of energy and how they can reduce their demand, and encouraging, even just something as simple as changing to LED lights and that kind of thing. And of course, if we go for community ownership, which is the basis of the Drumlin cooperative that I chair, then people can invest and they can get a return on investment, and they can have that sense of ownership and engagement in energy, that topic. And I think, and it was made clear in the strategy that the department produced, that they would never achieve their goals if they didn't engage the population, the whole population, in the energy issue.
Community energy is actually a collective action. So there are examples where full streets in urban settings have put and purchased solar panels and then shared some of the profit, not only to reduce their own bills, but to promote community activities. So that's one example. Even efficiency programs. We have cooperatives in Manchester that do put together citizens in the driving seats to find out what is the best efficiency measure for their own house in the street, not only for themselves, but for their neighbors. So community energy allowed us to have a collective approach to what is a problem for many, and reducing so the cost, have more profit available then for the community to really reinvest it in what are their priorities.
I suppose the major legislative piece that the Department for the Economy will be taking forward in relation to energy is the Renewable Energy Price Guarantee Scheme, and I think one of the biggest difficulties the Department seem to be grappling with is the legality or not of having mandatory community benefit. Just keen to take your view in terms of, do you think that that should be something that within the legislation is legally required, what that looks like, and who shouldn't benefit from that?
Okay, I'll answer first. Mandatory contributions to community fund are a positive thing. They're not the best thing, but they're a positive thing, and we should be squeezing more contribution from the those who are generating. In Drumlin, we have a community fund, and we grow that, and we're growing it significantly as we pay off more of our debt. But that's our focus. It's not the focus of most of the private developers. Their rightful focus is to match the requirements of their investors, so they're taking money out of Northern Ireland rather than necessarily putting it in. So a mandatory payment can make good sense, but it's not the essence of what we're speaking about here. We're talking about also, and I think others can talk with more knowledge than I can, that we could commission or allow the commissioning of wind energy where there's already an equity interest in the communities that are local to it. They actually take a return and they get engaged, and they're part of the design and the delivery of renewable energy. Those are things that we need to think about, but we'll always be told there isn't legislation that delivers it. So let's put the legislation in place, Chair. I mean, that's the issue. It's having the ambition to do this differently and better, and get from the back of the bus into the driver's seat. That's where we should be.
And I think one of the things that GB Energy has promoted is the idea of shared ownership.
Yeah.
And various models exist for that, and how much better that people can invest and actually avail of the profits locally. I have some reservations about the reduction in electricity bills. While they will be popular, no doubt, they're not going to help solve the problem in the long run. Mm-hmm. They're not going to promote people thinking about how they can use less electricity, and there are also those issues if you do it locally. Where do you draw the boundary? You know, it can create lots of problems. So a wider approach, I think, it would be preferable.
And finally, just for me, in relation to the GB energy piece, John, you talked about the up £1 billion available. What do you think the height of the ambition of the Northern Ireland Executive, in particular the Northern Ireland Economy Department, should be?
And that's an easy question for me, Chair. It should be the £1 billion, but
we have our friends joining us very shortly.
No, I do. They're at the back. So we should flag that up. But I think we should be doing better than proportionately to our size. Yeah. That's what would be my ambition. My feeling is that we need a department to work more closely with us on that as we see opportunities and we can make connections. It's very difficult. There are challenges for the department in this. I'm not trying to hide from those. But we're close to communities, we're close to organisations that deliver on these programmes, so we would be ambitious to get more than the normal share we would expect.
And we tried to provide you with the evidence that we were lagging behind. We are lagging behind. So out of that 1 billion, we need some of those resources to start developing, raising awareness, really catch up with the rest of the UK.
Yes.
Otherwise, we will always lag behind. So it's not all the money equal. Yeah. Let us talk about developing the sector, developing the interest, the appetite, as well as the infrastructures.
And to add to that, I'm a member of the board of Drumlin. We'll be founder members of that. We've 6 turbines. We've recently repowered 2. We'd like to have repowered 3. To repower 2, we had to raise £2 million. The third one would probably have been £1 million. If we had a third support from a programme like this, we had 3 turbines producing more energy, providing more resources for us to put into our community fund. These things all connect together. Maybe the call out the GBE when they're there is to make sure we get a better share than we've had before of programmes in the UK.
Yeah, and I think I would say we're looking for real insights and studying what's happened in the rest of Europe, where renewables are so much more significant than they are. So our comparison today has been with other regions in the UK and in Ireland. But
and maybe if I could just add to that, I'm not just a member of Drumlin, I'm also a stakeholder. So I'm a farmer, and the income that I get for leasing the land for the turbine is a very valuable asset to us, and equally for any farmer at this point in time in the current setting. I'm the chair of Northern Ireland Community Energy. It was a project developed at the back of Drumlin. We put free solar panels on 18 community organisations in Northern Ireland, and they get free electricity. And some of those are in North Belfast, they're in Derry, there's a broad spread. And apart from the fact that they're generating possibly maybe £2,000 to £2,500 of savings in the year, it is also showing them where they could be making efficiencies and learning how to manage their electricity demand. So simple things like learning not to put the kettle and the washing machine on at the same time, so that they're getting the best use of the generation. That's all part of the education process, which is a valuable component of community energy and taking us forward in that net zero transition.
Thank you so much indeed. I'm going to open up the colleagues. Diana.
Good morning, and thank you very much for coming in. I commend you on your work and your commitment to community energy. And in my own area, I represent Fermanagh South Tyrone. I looked to Fermanagh Trust that had a community energy proposal in 2014, and also the Arc Healthy Living Centre collaborative biogas project in 2015. And there is the ambition in the communities to take this forward. So in a sense, it's very timely that this is now happening, and that GB Energy are coming to fund an ambitious project to bring energy, to regenerate energy in our local communities. But my question would be, what changes to current community ownership and community wealth building would you like to see in order to make it easier for communities to raise the funds to invest in the turbines and for the projects?
Perhaps the short answer to that is to have a strategy with teeth in it, with targets, with requirements to deliver and resources behind it. I think that would enable you. You've mentioned two wonderful organisations in Fermanagh, very entrepreneurial, very innovative. If the conditions are there to attract investment, and they get the support they need, as many community organisations are, the technical support that's required to be able to understand how you put this together, the financial and economic assessment support to be able to put a business plan together, this will flourish. It will grow in Northern Ireland because we're good. We do things really, really well. We just need to have use the analogy of a fertile field. If the field's fertile, we'll grow things.
Communities, one of the main obstacles to participate in this bigger project that you mentioned is that where is the money to buy into it? Simple as that. So we need some kind of mechanism to fund the communities in order to participate as an equal participant in this bigger project. So it could be finance at lower rates, it could be maybe also some kind of funding to help the community understand what they get out of it. So the feasibility study to participate in that. But finally, we know that GB Energy across the other regions is preparing shared ownership legal documents. We need to really embrace these templates that will actually allow the community, not starting from scratch every time this opportunity happen in Northern Ireland. So it's about a kind of more kind of strategic way to help and enable communities, not to let them behind this bigger project and make them really good participant in them. But ownership is what we want. We want ownership. We don't want only community benefits, what the private developer or the public authority is doing. We want a real stake in it, because it's only with ownership that we can actually then predict our kind of sustainability.
And in the local power plan, it mentions co-ownership with local authorities.
Yes.
Would you work with local authorities?
Social partnerships are at the core of what we would see moving forward. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
There's a range of models that can come into play that suit a particular connection, particular community, particular organisations. But we want community engagement in the ownership and control of our own energy consumption and production.
Yeah, one of the key things, of course, is that there can be lots of ideas, and some of them are ideas that need to be explored, and that costs. So kind of feasibility studies are important to get things off the ground. And the recognition, as they have done elsewhere, that sometimes you do a feasibility study and that's not going to be feasible for various reasons, and you just have to accept that. But that comes at a high cost for a community.
Yes.
And there's no learning that isn't good learning.
Yes.
We do have an example where there has been some co-partnership. Ballymacash Rangers, the sports academy in Lisburn, have worked very closely with Lisburn and Castlereagh Council to develop the sports academy stadium there, and they're doing some great work and have installed just recently solar and battery storage and EV chargers, and have another phase rolling on from that for further solar installations.
Just on the point of solar, do you think they would qualify for community energy project if they're on school buildings? Would you think?
Why would the school not pay for it?
Yeah.
Got their own budget, they got their own capex. We want to see community organisations doing that. The other example was if you went to Slotneil, which is the GA club. They have two turbines, I think, at the moment. Yeah. Those turbines generate, and the revenues coming through it go back into their own community, and they build things. This is the way this works, and that could be done either solely by a body like Slotneil, or it can be done in partnership with a council, or it can be done, can even be in partnership with the private sector. Those things are all examples that have been in place. The idea is giving the communities an equity stake in what's happening.
The other issue with schools in Northern Ireland, schools tend to be closed during the peak period of generation. So it doesn't quite seem like the priority to put solar panels on schools.
Yes.
It's different now if the schools are open for summer clubs or what have you. But by and large, a lot of our schools are closed from the end of June right through to September.
And if you put it in people's housings, that's where the real impact is. It's lower cost.
Okay. Thank you. Sinead?
Okay, thank you very much. It's really interesting conversation and a bit scary about how far behind we are, the rest of the regions and the islands. Just something that you touched on, John, earlier. Obviously, we've got a policy vacuum here within the department, and we don't have adequate data just about what the activity is on the ground. So we're really starting from scratch, albeit we have evidence of really good energy and good community energy networks that are development, but they're nearly developing despite the department rather than with the department, which does concern me. This is a really important conversation because our energy is unstable at the minute, and we need to move towards a green transition much faster than we have been doing, and there are solutions and people want to be part of the solutions. But you mentioned in your conversation, John, that you want to work with the department.
Yes.
Have you got evidence that the department is exploring the depth of the opportunities that you have expressed here at this committee? Are they looking at this as part of some of the solutions that we need to deliver some of our targets in the future? But are they exploring it in a meaningful way and moving towards that policy area, the data collection, and understanding just how you can be part of the solution?
I suppose the quick answer to that is could do better. Okay. I think it's a question for the department maybe to answer for you. We're open to dialogue. We've said we have experiences, we have understandings we'd like to share, but to engage with us. The problem being we haven't had that regular and in-depth engagement. We would welcome that, and we will facilitate that. We'd like to see the department thinking about resourcing some of that, because it resources other things.
And do you get any, are the department actively raising awareness about community energy programmes?
I think if you look at the frameworks coming into place halfway through the planning cycle, tells you that it's not been the priority it could be, okay? And I'm not blaming the department on that. Energy is a very complex thing, and there's large investments in it. There's big private sector investments in it. But the savings and the value and advantages of growing community engagement within that and community ownership are really obvious. I mean, we've raised them here. So we would like to see, I think, more of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're open for that. We've always been open for that.
And I think it's fair to say Drumlin would not be in the situation it's in if it was not for that ROC support and the foresight of government at that stage that they wanted to encourage renewable energy. And I mean, you know, we were able to raise through community shares the 4 million almost pounds that were needed to build our 6 turbines. And in this current year we have allocated £30,000 in community benefit, and next year it will be 60,000, and that's our commitment going forward. And we've devised an education programme that we deliver this year to 22 or 23 schools, a one-day programme for them. And you know, that speaks of what's achievable, but I fully recognise it wouldn't have happened without because it would not, just for the size of we are 1.5 megawatts, which is, you know.
And on that point, so you've contended in your documents and here today that the absence of a supported programme has led to a lack of engagement within, you know, for development community energy projects. But you also said that there are great examples outside of the United Kingdom and Ireland, particularly in the EU. I myself, a bit like what Phil was saying earlier, you know, if we were able to drive this and grow this would be an anti-poverty strategy.
Oh yes, it is a multifaceted impact, you're right.
So, you know, it would be of benefit to those that need the help and support the most, and you could actually drive it and direct it towards those areas and regions that are crying out for support. It's like, you know, retrofitting houses or social housing stock and things like that could be built into it, and people could take ownership of it. And I like the way you speak about, you know, this is not about community benefit. This is about the people owning it, not the suppliers or the energy big guys coming in and saying, if you do this here, we're going to support your GAA pitch, or we're going to give you your team kit or something like that. No, this is about people owning it and people driving it, and then choosing what those benefits are for the community.
With secure long-term revenues coming from that.
And so, have you got examples of that? I know you're saying Scotland's leading the way here in here, but have you got good examples within Europe, because they're even more ahead than the rest of us in relation to this?
Yeah, there are lots of examples and lots of information available.
Tiziana probably would know better, but Spain, the Netherlands.
We also, I'm Italian originally, I'm from Italy, and in Italy as well has been a bought-in commitment from municipalities, that is our councils, to share ownership with the communities. Those are great examples where shared ownership models have worked for citizens. There are many other kind of examples in the northern part of Europe where Denmark and the Scandinavian countries have been prioritizing cooperative ownership of wind turbine 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah.
20 years ago. Actually, even more than that. We had the pleasure to actually visit Germany, the southern part of Germany, where exactly that happened, where community own an entire grid, a micro grid, the grid that, because that was denationalized, of course, the circumstances are different, and we have to take the learning where it's applicable to our region, but certainly there were great community action, and that happened after Chernobyl. Yeah. People got so scared of this nuclear investment that the German people say, no nuclear, we needed to do something about energy. For instance, I'm just trying to give you a different example. Yeah. The problem is that mobilization has happened for the past many years. We were mobilized, we did all this in spite of government here in Northern Ireland, and then we had the desert land where we couldn't do anything else because the route to market is inexistent. So when you are asking what the department could do, we would judge practically the department if they can start really to think about community energy in their own strategy, if that name will come up and will offer us a route to markets, targets, definition, and support. Those are the things that we want.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, one very quickly to say that most of the infrastructure for energy is in rural areas and not in the urban areas. And I think it's important in terms of acceptability because we've got this price guarantee scheme going forward, and I think in terms of acceptability of more turbines and PV solar farms and things, that there's going to have to be reward for people who actually live in those rural areas and deal with all the storage and the pylons and all the rest of it.
So, for example, my farm, they're going to restring for the third time in this last 5 years for an upgrade to go to Kilrea and Garva and to accommodate solar PV. I have to accommodate those folk on the farm. I have something like 10 pylons. We're very close to the substation. But on the other hand, that facilitated the wind turbine, gave us an easy connection. So that, I think, helps community accept that there's a quid pro quo if you can see the benefit. And, there is areas, as we know, in Northern Ireland where they're very anti both pylons and wind turbines. So I think community energy schemes do help people accept that when they see the benefit and they get a say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's really good to see you, and fascinating and really heartening presentation. I'm really fascinated with community wealth building, and I agree this is really exciting. And your point about actually, rather than reducing energy bills, but investing in infrastructure. It's a conversation I had with a constituent last week. They said, rather than giving me £30 and I don't need it, if we could invest money in areas where they could have this infrastructure, it's really something that we should be looking more at. So this is such a timely conversation. A lot of the key kind of areas I was going to ask have already been covered. But just the point on data, I always ask about data. You mentioned that there's no official data held on the number of active community energy organisations in Northern Ireland, and definitely should be something that's tracked by the department. Is there any other data that would be useful for the department to have or track?
If I could just explain the data. In GB, there are 3 organisations: Community Energy Scotland, Community Energy Wales and Community Energy England, and they do a State of the Sector report every year, and Northern Ireland has been absent from that for quite some time, and they got in contact with us when they realised there was Drumlin Wind Energy, and then they found out about the solar, and they asked us to contribute to that report. But whenever the report came, there was no logo for a community energy Northern Ireland. And the figure was so stark, it was embarrassing, the difference between the other jurisdictions and us. And they actually dropped us a couple of years ago, and they don't report in Northern Ireland at all. And that was the only reported figures that there was for community energy in Northern Ireland.
It's why resourcing the network becomes so important.
Okay. Yes, of course.
Be able to do that.
The GB, we've talked about GB Energy and they're here. What would you particularly like us to ask them? And also the one question I also had was, and David is gutted that he's not here, by the way, especially after you mentioned Ballymacash. He's really passionate. He's really passionate about energy. But we know that GB Energy gave 1.6 million for community energy. Do you know what that's been spent on?
No.
No,
that'd be a good question.
That'd be a good question. Okay.
And I think also the issue of transparency. It will be, I assume, important for GB Energy and the department to work together as how they're going to get the benefit to communities in Northern Ireland. So I think it'd be important that is a transparent process.
It'd be a good question to ask to GB Energy how valuable it would be to have a network that it can engage with, which was connected into the infrastructure of community energy.
And there are different mechanisms where we can get the money to the people, really. And I will invite GB Energy to really explore what Scotland has done, when there is a third sector organisation, really, local Scotland Energy, that is really managing the funds. And is a consortium of a local organisation. But, the models are there to be discussed. Maybe, we wanted to have some decisions done soon. We are kind of a bit impatient.
Well, we're very patient. We've been patient for far too long.
You're doing really wonderful work, and I love how you have really couched this in community and the dignity of community and empowering communities, and helping the planet as well. So all I can say is your key ask was that as a committee we push the department, we make sure that this is on the agenda, that it's included in the strategy, and that there's a plan, and that your voices are heard, and that's something that we definitely will take forward. So thank you.
Declan.
Thanks, Philip, and yes to what you've just said in your concluding point, Kate. So we've established there's a lacuna in departmental policy, and the department, in response to an earlier question, could and should do better. So my question, because a number of points have already been covered, my question is, how should the department, in your view, be promoting community ownership of renewables, and how do you democratise that process at a community level?
Maybe I'll pick that up first, because I think it's a very insightful question. One of the challenges for many communities, is they can't engage in a process where they don't have the technical skills and capacity to do that, but they have the willingness to do it. So an intermediary is required with that kind of support network to enable them to think through. 25 years ago, when I was able to attract, and where I worked European funding, I was able to run community planning, energy planning exercises on both sides of the border. And that was providing expertise alongside the community to think through its problems and look for solutions, and then try to encourage those solutions. And one of the examples that came from that was the housing executive stopped in fitting new windows that weren't double glazed, because they didn't used to do that. They didn't know that they could or should do that. As a result of the data that the community found, it was in Carnegat in Newry, they were able to demonstrate how valuable this was in their homes. That changes. So empowering communities need a supportive, independent resource who will help them to do that. We found that in Drumlin developing, as we had access to people who knew new skill sets that we didn't have. That was how we put it together. So finding a way to support and resource access to technical skills that can help communities do that. The willingness is there. It's the barrier is often that, and something that Sienna mentioned, access to patient capital or soft capital, which is a mixture of grant aid and soft loans, also opens the door, because there's a big fear for an organisation or a community, well, what will we take on? But you've only to look at our network of credit unions. They're huge in Northern Ireland. It's £2.3 billion, or nearly £3 billion of community assets are sitting in that. Not only could it be unlocked if it was safe, but it shows organised communities are quite capable of doing this. They just need the support mechanism to do it. I hope that answers the question.
Can I also add that we have a mechanism like a community shares?
Yeah.
The two examples that you have here today, they raise the money through community shares. That they are shares sold to each individual to a very affordable price. Our bottom price was 250. Ballymacashe was £50. Everybody. So you give the opportunity to every citizen in the area or in interest in what we are doing to invest in that, to buy equity. So community shares can also be another form of capital. Loans that have a low rate of interest, more patient capital, more kind of flexible loans where we can actually repay it within 10 years rather than 6 years. But in order to do that, really, the real issue is we need a route to market. Before we democratize, we need a route to market. We need to create community energy projects that can stand and be sustainable by themselves. So who do we sell our energy and how do we sell our energy? And what price do we sell our energy is what makes our profit and loss and our cash flow solid.
And I think, add to that, there is the opportunity for an awareness raising program because people often think of themselves just as consumers of energy as opposed to the fact that they can actually be engaged, and it needs to be made known ways they can engage. And I think that comes from government.
Very good.
Thank you, Declan. Okay, on behalf of the committee, can I thank you all for your work and for your dedication. You all played a really, really important role in the Society of Northern Ireland, so can I thank you very much for that. John, hopefully the Northern Ireland Housing Executive will play an important role in this too with your
couldn't possibly comment
with your other hat on, particularly in North Belfast. But thank you all very much. For your
Thank you very much.
Colleagues, I don't think we have any action, so we'll follow up at the end of the next. Are members content we take a short recess for around 6 minutes? We'll start again at 11:30 in public session to allow members to then commence again with GB Energy. Are members content we take a recess for that period? Thank you.
Committee Room 30. Sound. 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 Committee Room 30, 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 Sound.
Okay, there we are. Yeah. Okay, colleagues, welcome back. We'll now move on to item 8, which is evidence from DFE and GBE on the Northern Ireland action plans, and refer members to page 314, 319, 331 and 358. I'd like to welcome colleagues here today. So we've got Helen Seagrave, Director of Local Energy at GBE, Anne-Marie McCon, who'll be well known to committee, and William Dean and Barry Rooney, who I'm not sure if you've been before committee, but you're very welcome. We don't bite, I promise. So you're very welcome here today, and hand over to you.
Or no. Got me to go first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start. Okay, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to update the committee on the department's engagement with GB Energy. I'm here today with Barry Rooney, who's the Head of Energy Strategy, and William Dean, who's the Head of Energy Consumer Protection and Community Energy, and Helen is here representing Great British Energy, obviously. You may recall that I briefed the committee in January of 2025 as part of the legislative consent motion when the Westminster GB Energy Act was being made, and that act established GB Energy as a publicly owned and operationally independent energy company to own, manage and support delivery of clean power projects. The act and a subsequent statement of strategic priorities for GB Energy ensures that the activities here in Northern Ireland must reflect our distinct legislative, regulatory and market environment, particularly the continued application of EU electricity law, the operation of the single electricity market and the relevant aspects of the Windsor framework. And then in that statement of strategic priorities, the department was able to ensure that there was space made for the fact that Northern Ireland is somewhat behind in the development of community energy, and to ensure there's space there for provision of support for capacity and capability building, the sort of support that has been talked about earlier this morning. Since then, the department has maintained regular and constructive engagement with both the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, DESNES, and with GB Energy as it's moved from establishment into delivery. And during 2025-26, the Barry's Energy Strategy team facilitated the delivery of £1.66 million to support renewable energy projects across Northern Ireland's further education colleges. This funding was transitional because GB Energy was being established at that point, so it related to a single financial year only, and it supported a defined set of projects, primarily solar PV and battery storage, which will reduce energy costs, cut emissions and improve resilience across the college estate. And the department continues to engage with GB Energy, DESNES and the colleges to support delivery of those projects within the agreed time frame. GB Energy has now published its local power plan, which aims to support community energy groups. And the department's focus is now on maintaining our productive working relationship with GB Energy, providing advice and local knowledge as needed, so that the company can deliver its programmes effectively in Northern Ireland. In parallel with GB Energy's delivery, the department recognises that community energy is a key enabler of decarbonisation within the wider energy strategy, and it has a significant impact on community welfare, fuel poverty and community acceptance. The department engages with the community energy sector through, for example, we're represented on the Sustainable Energy Communities Advisory Panel led by Advice NI. We have participated in Dolman's Climate Action Network workshops, and we've ongoing stakeholder engagement with Community Energy NI. In addition, as officials, we meet regularly with the officials in the devolved governments to share learning and exchange best practice in the development of community energy policies and plans. This year, the department will produce a community energy policy framework. This needs a robust and up-to-date evidence base for how community energy policy needs to work in Northern Ireland. So we have commissioned the Energy Saving Trust to benchmark community energy policies and support, and undertake targeted engagement with around 20 stakeholders in Northern Ireland, such as community energy groups, local authorities and sector bodies. This work will identify barriers and opportunities for community energy in the Northern Ireland context. It will provide clear and practical recommendations on the government-led actions needed to ensure communities are well placed to access future opportunities as they arise, so that our people and communities in Northern Ireland can benefit from GBE energy initiatives in a way that supports the Executive's ambition to realise self-sufficiency and affordable renewable energy. So I'll pass over to Helen, who wants to make a few opening remarks as well.
You're very welcome to Northern Ireland. Is this your first visit in this role?
It is my first visit in this role, and I've had a great time. Thank you very much. So, Chair and committee members, thank you for inviting me here today on behalf of Great British Energy to discuss the local power plan with you. And before I begin, I do want to say how energising it has been to spend time yesterday in Lisbon, Ballymena and Ballyrobert, hearing directly from local groups and colleges about the excellent energy projects already making a real difference. I do find it generally inspiring to listen to people speak with pride about the solutions they've created which deliver tangible positive impacts for their local communities, like the education outreach you've already heard about this morning by Drumlin Wind Energy Cooperative, and the bill reductions that Ballymacash Sports Academy have seen through installing their solar panels. It does exemplify exactly what the local power plan is about, putting people at the centre of the clean energy transition. So, GBE received royal assent in May 2025 through the introduction of the Great British Energy Act, and the GBE local team, which I oversee, makes up one of our three core areas of our company, alongside onshore energy and offshore wind. The local power plan, which we published with the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero in February, represents the largest investment in locally owned clean energy in the UK history, but backed by up to £1 billion to support at least 1,000 community and locally owned projects by 2030. At its heart is a simple but powerful idea that every community should have the opportunity not just to benefit from clean energy, but to have a stake in it, whether that's through ownership, participation or jobs. It is an ambitious vision, but we believe it's also an achievable one, and we want to deliver it in partnership with devolved governments, local authorities and the community energy sector on the ground. Across the UK, community-led projects consistently deliver strong economic, social, environmental returns. Evidence consistently shows that revenues are reinvested locally, supporting local jobs, strengthening supply chains and bringing growth to communities. For example, an SSEN report that informed the local power plan showed that in Scotland, community energy groups reinvest 59% of their finances locally, providing over £3 million of investment to their areas between 2022 and 2023. Likewise, economic analysis commissioned by Devon County Council shows that community-owned projects create far higher local economic impact than commercial alternatives. International experience it reinforces this too. In countries such as Denmark and Germany, citizens and community ownership has played a central role in scaling renewable energy whilst maintaining public support and ensuring economic benefit stays within communities. What I saw yesterday whilst out visiting projects is that Northern Ireland is already demonstrating these benefits in practice and is actively building a strong collaborative sector. Our local power plan is designed to complement the Northern Irish sector, giving established groups like Community Energy Northern Ireland the tools to scale up what is already happening. The local power plan is not simply a strategy document, it's a package of delivery support designed to meet communities where they are, from concept ideas all the way through to operational projects. Ahead of the local power plan launch, we already began delivering in Northern Ireland with the investment that's been mentioned so far today, the £1.66 million that has been invested across 4 further educational colleges by the department at Belfast Met, Northern Regional College, South Eastern Regional College and South West College, all to install solar rooftop systems. I'm pleased that these systems have been projects have been progressing well, and it was great to hear directly from one of these projects in Ballymena yesterday. It delivers real bill savings for the colleges themselves, which they can reinvest in their education and training programmes. And that's just the beginning. And this summer we want to begin rolling out our first major funding and support offers under the local power plan. Firstly, we want to launch a community energy fund. This will provide early stage grant funding for feasibility and project development, supporting communities to take projects from idea to investment readiness. We know, and you've heard today, that early stage funding is often the hardest to access for communities, but it is absolutely critical. A pilot grant scheme in England has already supported over 50 projects with grants of up to £100,000, helping groups to explore viability, secure planning and develop robust business cases. Our plan is that by the summer we will have released this grant and, working closely with Northern Ireland and other devolved governments, broadened it so that more parts of the UK can access this vital funding. Second, we plan to make available the Partnership Fund. This will support collaboration between community energy groups and public sector partners such as local authorities. I will note that this, in its first instance, will only be an England-only fund as a pilot in recognition of devolved structures in the UK. However, my team will work with the Northern Ireland Executive to explore which alternative setups can be put in place here to support your requirements. Partnerships like these can unlock larger, more impactful projects, combining community leadership with institutional scale. Thirdly, GBE Local will offer ongoing technical and advisory support. As you've heard, funding alone is not enough. Communities also need help navigating and overcoming barriers in crucial areas such as planning, grid connections, financing and delivery. Likewise, we don't just want to reach out to those already doing community energy, but the wider public and those communities where perhaps community energy has not yet been realised but can deliver positive outcomes. We are therefore working on advice services and standardising guidance and legal documents to support the sector. This is being packaged as our Community Energy in a Box toolkit, and we will work with representative bodies like Community Energy Northern Ireland and other energy groups to ensure awareness of our capacity and capability support is broad across Northern Ireland. Also, later this year, we'll be making further financial products available, allowing projects to move to the next stage and scale up. Those will directly support project delivery, but also shared ownership opportunities. Shared ownership is essentially, as you've heard, gives communities the mechanism to buy out portions of commercial renewable energy projects, ensuring that those benefits are kept local. And finally, in 2027, we endeavour to have our local energy platform launched, which will act as a front door to GBE Local's full suite of products, where community groups, industry, local authorities and the public can explore what options might work best for them. We hope that this will go live in early 2027. A central principle of the local power plan is partnerships, particularly with devolved governments. We are absolutely committed to working closely with the Northern Ireland Executive and Assembly to ensure that what we deliver here aligns with local priorities, respects devolved responsibilities and builds on the strong foundations already in place. This means co-designing how funding is deployed, how programmes are delivered and how communities are supported. It also means listening. The conversations that we've had with Community Energy Northern Ireland and the Department for the Economy throughout the design of our plan were extremely beneficial. And as you've heard, we are continuing to listen to key organisations from across Northern Ireland as the input is crucial to ensuring that we stay on track. This also means being live to the upcoming legislations in Northern Ireland, such as the work to develop the Community Energy Policy Framework as part of the Path to Net Zero strategy. And as we are doing with CARES in Scotland and the Energy Service in Wales, we will of course align to ensure we complement devolved priorities rather than duplicate or crowd out that space. We see this as a long-term partnership, not a one-off intervention. Northern Ireland is exceptionally well positioned to benefit from the local power plan. It has a strong renewable energy base, highly engaged communities and a clear sense of ambition around the next phase of the energy transition. There are also significant opportunities ahead in areas such as offshore wind, energy storage and rooftop solar, which align closely with the objectives of the plan. And crucially, as you've heard, there's already momentum here. What I saw yesterday made it clear that communities are not waiting for change, they are already driving it, and our role is to support that momentum and help remove the barriers to scaling it further. Looking ahead to 2030, if we deliver the local power plan successfully together, and then by 2030 we will see tangible benefits across Northern Ireland, including lower energy bills for communities and public services, greater energy security and resilience, more local jobs, skills and supply chain opportunities, stronger, more connected communities, and critically more local ownership of energy, ensuring that the economic value created by the transition stays within communities. The local power plant represents a generational opportunity to reshape how energy is produced, owned and experienced. Northern Ireland is already showing what success looks like, and I look forward to working closely with you in the months and years ahead to make that vision a reality. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much, Helen and colleagues. If I could just start, Anne-Marie, in relation to the initial funding that was provided of the 1.166 million. Why were FE colleges selected as that project?
I'll take that one, Chair, if that's all right. The Department accepted a time-limited offer in 2025 of GBE funding intended to accelerate net zero delivery. Initially, that was for 1.61 million. But at that time, officials looked at delivery routes that would guarantee spend by 31st of March. And the further education colleges already had public estates, the shovel-ready projects, importantly, ready to go, that the procurement routes established. And they were able to deliver renewables and battery storage at the scale required for the funding. We engaged with the further education colleges in an application process, and the total of eligible applications was 1.66 million, slightly more. So we're pleased that DESNES and GBE slightly increased the funding to account for that. So that funding is delivering solar PV and battery storage across the further education college campuses. It's reducing carbon emissions for them. It's lowering ongoing energy costs and improving their energy resilience. Also supporting local supply chains and low carbon jobs. And I suppose from our perspective in the relationship with Great British Energy, this funding demonstrates that to GBE that Northern Ireland can deliver successfully. So I suppose that strengthens our position when there's future funding coming in.
Just seems like it was the easy route out for the department on this one, that they were already undergoing a project, and rather than trying to do something innovative that actually might have big community impact, we selected a project that was already on the books. What's the projected savings of the energy bill over the lifetime of the project?
I'll have to come back to you on the detail of that. And
in terms of the low carbon jobs that you say it's supported, how many jobs have been created and sustained as a result of this?
Apologies, Chair, I don't have that detail at hand. But through the application process, the colleges have estimated carbon savings and they've estimated the jobs as well. So we will be able to provide that to you.
Yep. Then, Anne-Marie, in terms of the projects that Helen had the privilege of visiting in terms of the community aspect, they've been delivered in spite of the department, not because of the department, because there's been no support to date for those projects. So how are we in a position whenever this community energy fund does open to Northern Ireland in the summer that we're ready to go with those? Do you have projects ready? Do you have applications ready? I just worry that if this opens in the summer, what we tend to do in government here is that we don't put together a process until the fund is open. The fund will then open, we'll scramble to put something together, and the closing date will be the 31st of March, and then we won't benefit here in Northern Ireland. So what preparations have we done that we're ready to go as soon as this application process opens in the summer?
I think it's important to say that the projects, the operation of actually having projects apply, be funded, etc., is not one that the department is involved in. The GB Energy is a fully independent company, yep. and they will be running those funds and those processes separately. The reason why the department was involved in the first allocation was because it was transitional. It was allocated with only months to get that money spent, and the department does not have a scheme or a route to community energy, and therefore that's why we were involved in that first transitional year. But now that GB Energy is fully operational, that actual delivery mechanism will be delivered by GB Energy. Our role is to make sure that GB Energy has all the help, advice and assistance that they need to design whatever supports are required that will actually be beneficial to Northern Ireland, which is why we are in the department are developing the policy framework to ensure that in parallel with what GB Energy are doing to deliver the funding, etc., that the department is doing everything the government needs to do to put in place the policy, any legislation, any kind of market issues that need to be sorted, that we're doing what GB Energy is not there to do, but that we need to do to make sure that that actually works really well together, and that community energy groups are enabled to basically take advantage of this funding. One of the things that we have done last year, and is only starting to get up and running now, is we've worked with the Consumer Council, and we have enabled them to start developing a new programme which is to develop active consumers and active communities, and that's going to be a programme of education, of communication, and also them getting feedback on what any issues are that people have and bringing those back. So that sort of communication and knowledge building programme is going on, and this year we're doing the community energy framework. We know what the position is in terms of public finances, and we are really excited that GB Energy has stepped into the breach to deliver that government funding, and we are determined to play our role to make sure that any of the structural issues that need to be sorted to enable that to happen, or to enable our community groups to work with that we ensure that those are sorted as quickly as possible. And that's why I'm looking for clear, practical actions that we should be taking to sort that out. And I mean, as you heard very, very ably expressed this morning, the expertise lies in the community. There are community groups and they know what they're doing, they know what they want to do, and we are engaging with them through the Energy Savings Trust to try and pull those things together and make sure that we have a collaborative set of information, and that we're doing the right thing and putting the right action plan in place from the government perspective.
That answer kind of alarms me, because my perspective on this, Anne-Marie, would be, you've been told by GB Energy that in the summer people in Northern Ireland are going to be able to avail of grants and support of up to £100,000. If I was the Department for the Economy, I would be banging down the door of GBE saying, right, what is this scheme going to be? What exactly is the application process? I would then be doing roadshows across Northern Ireland to ensure that community organisations and partners are ready to go with this, that they're supported through the application process, that the energy team within the Department for the Economy is ready to support community groups and organisations with application processes to GBE, rather than say, you know, we're simply here as a regulatory provider, we're here to ensure the policy fits. We know the money's coming. We're not overcome with funding here in Northern Ireland, and we have an opportunity to ensure that Northern Ireland gets its fair share of the £1 billion. So from my perspective, I think the department needs to be a really more active player in this. You're not being asked to financially contribute to this. All you're asking is to empower communities to do that. And my advice to you would be that you should be banging down the door of GBE, ready to see when this application process is opening and how we can ensure maximum applications for Northern Ireland, because this is a massive opportunity for us. In terms of GBE, then, do you know what this process is going to be for the Community Energy Fund, when it'll be open here in Northern Ireland for applications?
So the fund's currently going through its design and business case planning process. It will be operated similar to how the Community Energy Fund, or the intention is for it to be operated in a similar way to how the Community Energy Fund in England has been operated to date, because last year that was branded as the Great British Community Energy Fund. So it would have an application process for various different either stage 1 projects, which are smaller scale feasibility funding, or stage 2 projects, which would be like development funding, but the details are currently being worked out, and we're looking for a central service provider to do that for us across the UK. Okay.
That'll be up to 100,000, do you think?
Potentially, yes. I think the final amounts are just being confirmed.
Okay. Then the partnership fund, if I got that correct, so why is Northern Ireland being excluded from that?
So Northern Ireland isn't being excluded by itself. It's going to be an England-only fund for next year because of the way that the local authority relationships have devolved through run by devolved governments at the moment, but also it's just a pilot project, so we have a small amount of funding to test to see whether it's a good idea next year, and then in future years, following discussions with the Northern Ireland Executive, the Welsh Government, the Scottish Government, we can decide how it's potentially run across the whole of the UK.
And then technical support was the next one. Will that be a UK-wide service? Okay. Do you have any employees in Northern Ireland?
Not at the moment, no. We've been set up in Aberdeen, so we're recruiting our permanent staff into Aberdeen at the moment, and we have temporary staff based across the UK, depending on which organisation we've seconded them from.
Are there any here in Northern Ireland at the present?
Not at the moment, no.
And are there plans to have?
I'm not aware of any plans at the moment, no.
So how will they provide technical support to community groups or organisations on the ground if we don't have any physical people here in Northern Ireland?
So we're hoping to set up partnership relationships with organisations to work through third parties to deliver some of our services. So we'll be looking for organisations to work in partnership with.
So you would contract a community group or organisation or experts who may or may not have given evidence to this committee to do something like
Potentially,
that?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Then in terms of the overall £1 billion, is there a view within GBE of how that's going to be divided across the United Kingdom?
So we're currently developing our strategy for how we're going to allocate that to meet the objectives within the power plan, and we're planning on publishing some further details later in the year. We're going to invest that based on some strategic principles that we're currently consulting on. So later on in May, we're going to be coming out and talking about how we can deliver up, pick the best, not the best projects, but the projects that will support communities that meet a strategy that's based on meeting just transition principles, demonstrating how community energy can be scaled up and delivering impact through projects. So we're not dividing it up geographically across the UK, but we are setting a strategy that aims to try and reach as many different communities as we can.
And would you take into account the fact that Northern Ireland's position on the issue of community energy is at a much lower rate than the rest of the United Kingdom, and that investing a heavier proportion here in Northern Ireland would have a more meaningful impact on UK-wide numbers?
So I think what we're going to try and do is make sure that through our strategy we are working with new communities and people that haven't already got the benefit of community energy.
And then from a department perspective, finally, just for me, what's the target in terms of that £1 billion that you're aiming to try and draw down into Northern
Ireland? I think in short, as much as is available to our communities and where the highest impact's made.
We've got bound to have a figure in mind, a target that we're working towards.
No, I'm not committed to any figure as such yet.
Why not?
Until details land on exact scheme parameters, for example, it'll be considered in due course.
Yeah. So there's £1 billion available. Bound to be a bit of ambition or view within the department. We want to try and draw down 100 million, 200 million. We want to see 300 million spent in Northern Ireland. When do you think you'll be in a position in terms of setting a target of what you want to see drawn down here in Northern Ireland?
I think our community energy framework is where we are gathering all our data together, and this is what we want to produce. We want to produce an action plan, we want to produce some sort of ambition, so we want to basically understand where we're going and understand, because there are different definitions of community energy around the place. Some people think of community benefit as community energy, other people say no, it's citizen and energy and community owned things. So we're trying to get all of that pinned down and established, and by the end of the year we will be in a much clearer position. That's the intention. And we are engaging on a weekly basis with the GB Energy local energy team, asking for the details as they are being developed. They're not available at the moment, but as they're being developed, we are looking to get those details to bring that in line with our Consumer Council work as well. And Helen and her team in GB Energy are very open to actually engaging with our mechanisms through the Consumer Council, etc., and through the other mechanisms that we have. We're collaborating to try and get this delivered, And my hope would be that over the course of a year, we would see us in a very different position in terms of community energy, because we have the funding streams, and we're in the department setting up the communication streams and the government style supports that are needed, and also the engagement with the local communities, because the department, is not looking to sit as arbiter of what community energy should have or should be. We're looking to the community groups who have the expertise to be involved in co-design all of this, and that's those systems and mechanisms are things that we're hoping to get set up as part of this framework.
And then finally, when's the framework going to be published?
We're aiming for by the end of this calendar year, so by December.
That'll be published, or with the Minister?
Well, it will be. It's going to be part of our plan for this year. It's part of our business plan for this year. We would hope to have it published by the end of the year. That's the expectation. We will get it to the Minister. There may well be cross-cutting elements in it. We don't know what's going to be in it yet. If there are cross-cutting elements, it'll have to go through those processes. So we're aiming to have it complete and ready by December.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, and I'm so glad, Helen, you've had a positive experience of visiting Northern Ireland. We have highest dependency on oil, serious issues with fuel poverty, and amazing communities that really need their investment. So hopefully you'll be visiting more, and it would be great if there were staff based in Northern Ireland, so that we could have that direct support. I feel so different from the first presentation. I'm not gonna it was so energized and so hopeful, and I just feel a bit deflated from this. And I have to be honest about that. Further education colleges are not community. They're arm's length bodies of the department. The community is sitting behind you. And what they're saying to us, and what they said in their presentation, is that they want to engage with you more. They want to work with the department, and I'm not sure a community energy policy framework, which is developing an action plan and definitions, is really kind of what's needed. And I'm not sure the department knows what it is if the money is going to further education colleges, not to community. So really what I would like to say is, and please talk to them and make it meaningful. There is so much opportunity to actually deliver innovation, and so often we're risk averse, but you need to take chances and you need to do things differently. And just the same process of action plans and definitions, and what is that actually going to change within community? I think what I would really like to know is, from what you heard earlier on, how are you going to do things differently, and how are you going to engage in them, and what is this going to look like? Please boost us up.
Well, maybe just to clarify that when I say action plan, I don't mean an action plan that sits on the shelf. What I would like to see is, whenever someone says to me there is a gap in the policy, I would like to know, what is that gap? What can we do to fill that gap? When I say an action, I mean a specific action about what can actually be done to move things along and to help things. So I'm hoping that this will be, I'm working towards this being an action plan that will be delivered quickly, that will identify what can actually move the dial, what can help community groups to do their applications, to get their funding, to do the things they need to do and benefit their communities. It's not an action plan for long-term strategy. It's looking to say, well, we're being told this is an issue. Let's try and drill down and see what exactly can be done about this issue, and then we're prepared to step up and do it.
Okay. I mean, what they were very clear is that they want targets, they want ambition, and they want really meaningful engagement. And I think it would be worth having a conversation afterwards about what that engagement should look like. There's so much opportunity, and what came through in the presentation was that it's going to look different depending on the different communities. So actually having one kind of plan, it needs to be flexible, and I just don't feel hugely reassured that an action plan will be able to capture that,
Well, hopefully in a few months' time, whenever we start actually developing that, hopefully I would be able to come back to you and give you more information, and that would be a lot more positive. That's what my aim is.
Kate, if I could come in just on the 1.6 million for last year. Again, that was funding. It was made clear that it was for a single year. It wouldn't be repeated. We've heard that community energy here has a requirement really to develop a pipeline of projects. This funding was primarily for capital, so we wouldn't have been able to give it the offer advice and develop that pipeline. Why? Because it was for capital.
But the capital projects within communities.
Yeah, but for 1 year only, we really needed shovel-ready projects ready to go, and the further education colleges had those, the procurement in place, and they were ready to deliver. There was a risk that if we didn't get that delivered within a year, we would have lost the funding completely. So we made the assessment really that it was better to go with that option and get the money spent and see the benefits, given that it was for 1 year only. I think community energy is hugely important, of course, as we've heard, the energy transition. It requires longer term funding and support that is beyond capital, support with advice and guidance to get communities to a position where they're ready to deliver projects.
I just think I understand what you're saying, but some of the people that Helen went to see are really successful, and it feels sometimes that the department takes credit for the really good work that other people are doing. So there are really amazing projects that are already happening. So it just doesn't feel convincing that it was only a year and we had to go with something that was sure. Like, we've got really great examples of where it's being done elsewhere. I just think we need to put our trust in communities' ability to do this and give them the opportunity to. And at the moment, it doesn't feel like we're there. And I hope that when we do have the next conversation, we're seeing communities being empowered and this taken forward. And those were the kind of the key asks, was that there is proper policy in place, that there's real engagement, and transparency was the other thing that they raised. So I think the fact that the groups didn't know where that money had gone to, I think is problematic, and I think we just need to make engagement a bit more meaningful. And the lack of data was also something that they raised as well. Is this something the department's going to be doing more around in terms of kind of tracking and supporting?
We're aware that we don't know exactly where the groups are, what's being developed, what groups could be interested, but don't know how to start developing. And that's why we're doing this evidence gathering piece of work, and not jumping just straight to creating a policy. We think we understand. We're making sure that this actually has an evidence base, and that all of the stakeholders and the community groups get a chance to say, this is what we want, and this is what we want to see, and this is how we want to see it. So that's what that piece of work is doing. It's actually engaging with the community groups and the stakeholders, and gathering that evidence, and then bringing forward recommendations for what we really need to be doing, what are the meaningful targets. We don't want to produce targets that we're then theoretically working towards. We want to produce something that's actually something that we can be on a pathway to actually helping to deliver something.
Okay.
It's very much a collaborative effort. We understand exactly what you're saying there, and that's why we're looking to set up a collaborative mechanism where ourselves, GB Energy, all the community groups, Consumer Council, where everyone's working, pooling their resources to actually get this delivered.
If could you, and I'll make this my last one. But in terms of process and engagement, like, what is the process then? If there was in terms of a project is being taken forward, how would that work when you get money from GB Energy and there's a project and you're taking that forward? What should the
we
process
won't be
be?
getting money from GB Energy? It'll be GB Energy.
How does that? Just to better understand the processes of how these projects are taken forward.
So we're developing a number of different ways of supporting projects. I think if you're talking about a grant fund, it will be a standard application process assessed against some published criteria and a competitive allocation against other projects that are applying to the grant within the sort of the defined time frame. We're also looking at how to invest in projects with more commercial returns, and at the moment we're developing our investment strategy and what kind of projects we'd like to support through that, and we're just looking at the delivery models for how to deliver that funding, and we're working through that at the moment, so we don't have sort of any confirmed position on that, but that's more likely to be projects will know what kind of projects we're looking for, what characteristics there are, and what we offer in return in a way a renewable energy company would look for projects to invest in.
And that will be the same with all the devolved?
Yeah, that will be a UK-wide offer, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you very much, everybody, and welcome, Helen, to Northern Ireland in your role. Helen, could I start maybe with you? So obviously £1 billion of investment. I think you said 1,000 projects across what was the number of projects?
So we want to support at least 1,000 different projects.
So it could be more, could be less.
Well,
depends on the.
It hopefully won't be less,
okay.
But it could be more. Yes.
Okay. On from what the Chair had said, I suppose I'm a wee bit disappointed to hear that there is not a geographical element to the funding. Is that firm now that won't be the case? So it'll be purely on project merits rather than a geographical spread. Is that the fixed position?
We're very keen to just support projects that come forward and present themselves to us that align to our strategy and it represent good value for money for investment across our portfolio.
Yeah. And will that take into account rurality? Given what we have talked about Northern Ireland being very much a rural aspect of, and other parts of Northern England and Scotland, for example, will that be taken into account? Because if we go purely on project merits and size and scale, chimney pots essentially, how will you factor in rurality to the divvying out of this funding?
So I think there's different parts of the UK represent different opportunities for communities to get involved. So rural areas obviously have the opportunity to develop larger scale projects because they've got the space and the land. So there's opportunities there for communities to get involved in shared ownership projects, which I think are very, which urban areas, I think you asked the last panel about what are the opportunities for urban areas to get involved in renewable energy projects. I think you look at different types of projects in urban areas such as rooftop solar projects. So I do know, for example, within our 1,000 project title, we're not going to count individual homes as a project, but a project that would look at a group of domestic projects would count as one project. But
so £1 billion up to 1,000 projects. So we have seen that GBE Energy have went out for expression of interest.
Yes.
Process to invite local groups, community groups and local authorities to put forward project ideas. When was that expression of interest called?
So that was launched at the same time as the local power plan.
Okay, so that was in February?
February the 9th or the 10th.
Okay. Are you in a position to tell us what the number of projects that have expressed interest to date are?
So the team are currently triaging them. I can't give you an exact number, but it's several hundreds of projects have expressed interest with that. Yeah.
I suppose probably when I look at that and think several hundred here, I think then geographical spread, England, Scotland, Wales, 1,000 projects is going to fall probably quite a bit short of what the express need is essentially in the community. Do you have any indication of what similar expressions of interest in England, Scotland and Wales have come forward with in terms of the number of projects?
I don't have a geographical breakdown, but that process has only been it's been running for less than 2 months. That's organisations that have been able to put in projects that they're already aware of and that they've already got going, and what we need to consider is that the local energy market and community energy needs support to develop their projects. It's not a market that is currently necessarily viable for all types of projects. You heard from the previous panel that these projects need a route to market. So our overall strategy is about supporting opportunities that are there at the moment, which is why shared ownership is a priority, because that's where communities can take advantage of projects that are already already being developed. And I know the Irish market's separate, but within the UK, the only real large-scale projects that are being developed between now and 2030 are those that are coming forward under the Connections Reform process, so communities need that opportunity. Then there's the opportunity, obviously, for rooftop solar projects, and the sort of medium-scale community energy projects need that market development support. So our strategy is to support the market opportunities as they exist, but also to help create market opportunities to help make projects more viable to be delivered. So therefore, I would expect more projects to come forward as we move forward with our plans to sort of help the sector to develop.
It's probably fair to say if we have hundreds in Northern Ireland of a population of 1.8 million, when you extrapolate that out across the UK, you're probably going to be dealing with quite a number of thousand potential expressions of interest. So, yeah.
And I mean, the other point I'd like to make is that we want to create a market where projects can be delivered sustainably. So we will support the projects we support, but ideally we'll create the conditions for communities to deliver their own projects and for local energy projects to be delivered by organisations, and we'll just kickstart the market.
Just suppose my point on that, and I'll not labour on it, is that when you look at that number of projects, geographical ring fencing is something that I feel should be in some form considered, given that we're probably going to have well in excess of, I would imagine, 5,000+ applications, maybe more. Last point, so you've obviously travelled, you've been to Scotland, been to Wales as well, I would imagine, in your role, or is this the first protocol, or were all of you engaged?
So we're based in Scotland, so I'm in Scotland frequently, and but this is now I've visited projects in England, and then so this is now I'm here.
I'm just wondering, obviously in the letter that was received, and there was an early support package of 1.61 million for early local delivery of renewable energy projects. Did you visit any similar projects in Scotland or Wales? What was the allocation to them, for example, in this early support package?
So the support package that we've been talking about today was provided to all of the devolved administrations on our behalf by the department, and it was based on a pro rata allocation, similar to the amount that was allocated to schools and hospitals within England.
And what was the nature of the programmes? It was all in public sector buildings essentially, or was it?
So each of the devolved governments decided what they wanted to do with the money themselves.
Are you in a position to tell us what sort of projects Scotland and Wales advanced?
I believe Scotland put the money into their community, their CARES scheme, so their community energy scheme. Okay. And I can't recall what Wales did with their funding, but I could find out for you.
If you could perhaps provide that to the committee, it would be useful for context.
It's publicly available information, so we can provide that for you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Sinead.
Thank you for all the information that you've given us so far, and I just want to put on the record, I am too disappointed that we took the road of least resistance rather than the road less travelled in relation to funding further education colleges. Basically, we're funding the department for energy rather than the nature of the vision and the values of community energy. But to Helen specifically, you're very welcome. I am concerned in relation to the structures and the process that you have outlined here, and because our sector is so underdeveloped here in Northern Ireland, our community energy sector, there is a danger in that competitive process that we do not meet the criteria, or we have the significant return on investment, because we're starting from base. You know, we haven't even got a strategy. The department hasn't even got a strategy in place, never mind support for the sector. So the sector have been on their own developing projects, and whilst some of them are really brilliant and, you know, examples of best practice, they're not scale. So if all these projects, these 1,000 projects, are put in a competitive base, there is a real danger that Northern Ireland will fall behind. And we have got an example of how that was done before, and it was called the Levelling Up project. And instead of being strategic, it was just throwing money at shovel-ready stuff that was not about levelling up, it wasn't about economic development, it was just how can we get money in, and that is precisely why the colleges actually got money for this part, because we had not got the infrastructure here in place to support the community in order for them to have, good strategic policy or projects to move forward. So there is a real present danger that GBE Energy will be supporting big projects in England and Scotland and Wales that already exist and can demonstrate true competitive returns. And what are you doing to mitigate that in order, there has to be a process in it that we want to converge upwards. So those that are the furthest behind have got an extra opportunity to move things up so that they become at a level where their Scottish counterparts are or wherever, and they have a long, long way to go here. So we will be talking very, very small projects that won't compete with the big ones at all, won't even look the same. And how are you going to manage the process here? Because this is like the Green Book. The way the Green Book is used in London, where all big investments go to London because other parts of England can't compete with the big guys. And this process that you're explaining to us sounds very, very much like that. So what are you doing to mitigate and allow small projects in Northern Ireland to push through and run through and be competitive on their own terms?
So I think what I can say is we're in our planning stage at the moment and our development stage. So how everything we do is not set in stone at the moment. And one of the purposes of this visit, as well as coming to speak to you, is to learn more about Northern Ireland and more about what the sector needs, and to find out and listen and understand how we can help. And as Anne-Marie has already said, we've been working closely with them. We've been talking to the sector in Northern Ireland. So what I would like to do is to take away those concerns and build those into our plans as we are developing, because we haven't, nothing's 100% confirmed yet. We're still working out how best to reach out to people and to deliver and meet our aims and objectives. And as I said, we're developing our sort of strategic principles for how we want to deliver. We're going to talk to stakeholders more about that during May. That will give us an opportunity to embed some of these concerns and some of these objectives within that, and then we can feed that through into our delivery plan. So we've got an opportunity to work together for how this can be done and take on board your concerns.
As I say, we have done the levelling up, and it didn't level up at all. In Manchester, or Liverpool, they were building ports and building things, and here we were building play parks because they were shovel ready. That's not strategic, and it's not, and from with the greatest respect from what we've heard from the department, they're nowhere near shovel ready in terms of any type of policy in and around community energy projects. So with that inadequacy and the small sector that we haven't even got evidence or data around, we're at a disadvantage. And so therefore, if your processes do not recognise that disadvantage, we will be further behind by 2030 when we should be actually being given a lift up. I regret that there isn't a regional target in it, because there should be, because not every part of the UK is the same. We're further behind, and our insecurity is much greater than any other part of the UK in terms of energy as well. So there should be a fairness in the system, and there doesn't appear to be so far.
Okay, noted.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Padraig?
Thanks, Chair, and look, thank you for your presentation today. I suppose for me, to echo some of the points that have been made, I would be really keen to get a better understanding around a strategic review of this, particularly how it matches the unique needs that we have here in the North. And one of the avenues that I think would be useful to do that would be to get an understanding of the scoring matrix that are used for these assessments. So as you've mentioned, Helen, I think that's something that's still under development, but I'm not sure what stage that specific element's at. So just to start, it would be really useful if we could get a sense of that and whether or not there's still a flexibility and I suppose an ability to review that in light of the discussions we've had here today.
Yeah, I can't speak to that level of detail, but I can come back to you about that.
Okay, thanks for that. And I think that would be useful in, I suppose, allowing us to get a better understanding of it. So even if that can be shared with committee, that would be really useful. From the department end, obviously this is a critical issue, but it's one that's cross-cutting with other departments as well. So not to overlap with anything that's already been asked, but if I can get a better understanding of what engagement there's been with other departments on this in terms of process and a better understanding of what engagement there has been and will be going forward at different key stages of this.
We've had a lot of close engagement with the Department for Communities as the Warm Healthy Home strategy was being developed, because a large element of that of fuel poverty, one of the legs of fuel poverty is the cost of energy and energy security and energy efficiency and that sort of thing. So we've been engaging for quite some time with them in the development of that, and then also on the delivery of it. It's one of the issues, community energy is one of the issues that we are taking forward with them in collaboration, because they have a communities aspect as well. And what we want to do is we want to leapfrog on all of the other things that are going on as well, to make sure that we're working collaboratively and delivering more effectively and efficiently. So we're working with them. We're also engaging with the various areas in our own department. You know, there are areas that deal with co-ops and things like that. So I think there's quite a bit of expertise around the place that, as part of this framework, we're hoping to develop a collaboration mechanism where we can all pull together and actually progress things using the benefit of everybody's advice.
Just on that, from my understanding, is that sort of staged? So are those conversations going to happen over various stages? Are they all happening now? Or what? I suppose it's to understand the timeline of that, whether those conversations all happen at once or whether they're sort of in stages throughout this.
I think it would be fair to say that this is a very tiny team that's working on this. It's primarily William's team, and he only has 2 members of staff who also work on all of the consumer protection work. At this point in time, they spent the last 3 weeks working on oil issues. So we are prioritising these things to ensure, and juggling these things so that nothing is stopped. But we've managed to get a resource of 1 DP who's starting in September, and it's amazing how even one person who is focused on actually talking to everybody and putting these things together and having meetings, etc. And I'm really hoping that will energise it in William's team. And we're fortunate to have William as well. He's a new joiner to the department. He's been here less than a year, and he comes with knowledge of industry and renewable energy, etc. So when the community groups are talking about things like, you know, ROCs and routes to market, he understands those issues. So with his guidance, I'm really hoping that we'll be able to actually get this energised in the next coming months, and actually everybody working together, because I think there's so little resource everywhere that we need to be actually using it all together and making sure it's all working in the same direction. William, is there anything you want to add on that?
So as we develop our framework,
just before William, you do, if you don't mind, just my question really is about how this is going to come about over the next while. So I appreciate there's resource in place, but it's just if you wouldn't mind coming in on the specific element, because obviously the engagement part is really the critical part here, and what I want to understand is whether that's going to be a one-off thing now or whether that's going to be continuous. And if it's going to be continuous, what are your intervals? What's the scope of what you're going to do, and how can we actually see that there's a clear trajectory there, that you're going to have ongoing engagement with each of the groups you're meeting with?
Yeah. So, community energy, broadly speaking, the department has been very engaged with a lot of the key stakeholders, and we have been at many of their roundtables, for example, and we've always been seeking opinions and direction on what's important to them and where the biggest impact is. As we develop the framework, for example, and working with our consultant, they've been conducting a number of interviews, and I think that's a broad number, 20 or so in the first instance. We're seeking those views and opinions. I don't see that to be a start-stop or in any way just going to be intermittent, etc. There's going to be continuous ongoing engagement while we develop our policy. And difficult to maybe put into perspective or specific intervals, but I think we can commit to it'll be ongoing, it'll be persistent.
So I want to know what the specific intervals are, because I think community ongoing engagement can quite often mean we've spoken to those groups and that's it. So what I would like to know, and appreciate if if the detail isn't there today, but what I would like to know is how often is that engagement going to happen? When's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? Is that written? Is it face to face? Because the key part of this is that it impacts communities, that it impacts ordinary people. And for me, if it's a kind of conversation that happens now and that there's no follow-up, or that there's no regular follow-up, I think it lacks accountability. So what I would like to see is a clear pathway, which we as a committee can obviously scrutinise and look at and support. But I want to see when that's going to happen, how that's going to happen, who's engaged with that, and I think there needs to be an awful lot more detail on when that's going to happen. I'm not really clear on how often that's going to happen. I want to be clear on that. And obviously our role is a supporting role in this committee as well as a scrutiny role, but we have to have the detail to be able to do that. So I would be grateful if that could be provided to the committee.
Of course. Thank you very much indeed, Padraig. Diane?
Thanks, Chair. Oh, sorry, Diana.
No, Diane.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, similar names here. Thank you very much to you all, and welcome, Helen, as well. Just here in Northern Ireland, when we're delivering our public services, we don't have a good track record of our departments working well with our voluntary community sector, social enterprise, and it feels like this has happened again here in terms of this. So whenever you said that this £1.66 million was available, it's 1 year, it was the things that were shovel ready. Before you decided to go to the colleges, did you engage with Community Energy Northern Ireland to see had they any 1 year projects of any value that were shovel ready to go?
We engaged with a number of stakeholders. I'm not sure if we engaged directly with that particular organisation, but the priority was making sure that we didn't incur any underspend, and we took advantage of this money within the restrictions of the 1 year.
I feel that that's not really answering my question, because you could still not have had an underspend on it. Just getting the money out just for the sake of it to not have an underspend doesn't feel like the right answer here. But what I'm saying is, whenever you knew you had 1.66 million, rather than using it to prop up part of the department's budget to put energy investment into capital projects in the colleges, I just wondered, had you engaged with anyone else to say, is there anything else that meets the criteria? You said 1 year project, shovel ready. Like, Helen was out visiting a number of those projects. I would say there's a number of those organisations that did have things that would have been shovel ready to go, because I know a number across my own constituency that have been putting in for different funding applications and planning permission, and they are sitting ready to go for a variety of different projects. So I just wondered, had you asked, or did the department just assume?
Well, no, the issue really around the community energy side was that we didn't have a community energy policy or framework in place or scheme to put that money into. And in doing that, we would need to have generated the policy and scheme ourselves, all within a year, and then spend the money. I think community energy development here requires more sustained funding over a period of years, with a policy and scheme in place to make sure that sector is getting really what it needs in the longer term. So yeah, we were under pressure to deliver that money within a year. to
I think it was
develop.
a missed opportunity though too, because it's the first time you've had this coming through, and like I'm looking at that list, and whenever you have a new type of investment like this, 1.66 million is not an awful lot towards a capital projects across all of those colleges, and it's been lost in it. Like I'm looking at it, this got Newcastle within my constituency. I had no idea that this new funding went into that, to community energy. There was no publicity around it, no great hurrah. If you had given it to a small part of that to a small community organisation and publicised that would have been a great news story for community energy. So I just really think that it was a missed opportunity there. As I say, just going in, propping up that budget, it hasn't had the impact for you to say, just to avoid the underspend. I think it could have been handled better, and as well with the policy and the framework, we're halfway through this, this energy period, and that hasn't started. Like we had the previous contributors giving evidence to say, halfway through this, like that should have been a day one thing to start that framework, that work, that policy, that plan, and we should have been in a better place that whenever this money came, it could have been able to come out. And kind of just leading on just another point I wanted to ask, you said to the chair about the framework coming out and being published by the end of the year, so it's well progressed now, and I just wondered, have you been working in partnership with GBE Energy or with the contributors from this morning and able to bring that forward, or has that just been a departmental framework and policy?
We're working, we've commissioned the Energy Saving Trust, and that went out as an offer and was tendered for by several organisations, and the Energy Saving Trust was the one that was the best tender according to civil service procedures. So that's the Energy Saving Trust is a well established and they've got a lot of credentials in working in this area and producing these kind of schemes and frameworks and things. So we were content that they were the best people to then engage with all of the stakeholders. This is not a piece of work the Energy Saving Trust are doing for us. They are actually engaging with all the stakeholders, and we're involved in that too. But they're producing that evidence of what Northern Ireland needs specifically, differently from other areas. What level of community projects do we potentially have? Because we totally understand that we don't know that, and it's to get us that kind of evidence base to start taking this forward, and that process will be with all of the community groups. When we do engage, as William has said, we engage regularly with all of the groups whenever they have events and things happening. Our people are there, and they're on an advisory panel for the sustainable energy communities, etc. So we're doing what we can with the tiny resource we've got, and we are very aware of the need to involve everybody, and we do take your point on the potentially a missed opportunity, but we had to look at that in the constraints of the system we had in terms of the audit, the equality impacts of actually being able to design some sort of a scheme that would offer out to everybody, give everybody an equal chance of a plan for that, etc. And it just wasn't deliverable within the months that we were given to do it. So we took the decision that it was better to basically get the money spent on a local basis than, because it was local and community, and that was the very strict parameters we were given, and that was a decision that we made, and it was not a decision we wanted to make. That's why we want to see any money that is coming now from GB Energy being delivered down a proper route that people can actually apply for. But we do also want to see that support so that people are able to apply for things as well. So we take on board what you're saying, absolutely, but we had to deliver in the very, very short timescale we had, and within the kind of constraints that public spending puts on us to do it.
Yeah, and I think that whenever the money became available, and the reason being given that you didn't have this framework policy plan in place, meant that you couldn't then spend it this way. I'm really concerned that if other pilot money becomes available, you still don't have the plan, you still don't have the policy, and the same thing's going to happen again. So it just emphasises the need to get this agreed quite quickly. And I just wanted to ask then briefly around the fund coming forward, and we're talking about getting £1 billion, significant money coming across to Northern Ireland, and people bidding for those projects. Will this be open to public sector bodies like the likes of the colleges to bid for it, or will it be to community groups, or is it open to all?
Our initial plan is for the Community Energy Fund just to be open to communities.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming in to see us this morning. Helen, you're very welcome, and I'm sorry we couldn't arrange slightly better typical weather for Northern Ireland for you. But yeah, I think colleagues have covered a lot of the concerns that we have, about the process. And as you're hearing the feedback, it's really important. I'm sure that you take back that we're very rurally dispersed in certain areas of Northern Ireland. You've seen that when you've been up in Antrim. And we have a high dependency on fossil fuels, and renewable energy is a way we want to go for sustaining communities and helping reduce energy costs. Just on the actual £1 billion fund, is there a time? Is that over 5 to 10 years? Is there a timescale for that?
That's a commitment for this spending review period.
For this spending review, beg your pardon. And then applications, are they just on a rolling until you run out of the fund? Is there a deadline for applications into the fund?
So it will be spent in a number of different ways. The grant fund element of it will be spent. We'll have time-framed applications. How the sort of the non-grant fund element of it, which is more going to be investment style money because it's using financial transaction type of money to invest, that will be done on a different basis, which we're currently designing those schemes at the moment, so I couldn't speak to those specific details, but yes, it will be available until it's not, but I think there's enough money there to meet our objectives within this spending review.
And just, can you remind me when the fund is open now?
No, it's not. So it's currently going through its business planning and approval process.
And when do you anticipate it opening?
I'm hoping it's going to be opened by the summer.
So this summer, and we don't have a framework in place here to be able to feed in to that. So we're going to be at already a disadvantage in this region going forward. So I think that's quite a salutary lesson that we have to listen to. Just really, I think all other topics have been covered by colleagues here, but I just wanted to turn to the department on our EPG scheme. And a lot of these community projects will be generating energy below 5 megawatts. Will you reconsider then, in light of that, will you reconsider that being included in the REPG scheme, that output?
I can't give you a commitment on that today because it's not my area. I will bring that back and express and
Can you bring it back to this committee, please?
Yes,
because that would be an important inclusion for those small community groups to know that they could be involved in that scheme. That would be helpful. Okay, thank you, Chair.
And finally, Declan.
Briefly, Philip. So, given that the framework didn't exist and that created the difficulty for you, does that reflect on the extent to which you have had a community footprint or a community engagement footprint in place or not?
Our community engagement has been on the basis of as advisory support and to the groups. We don't have any funding, and that in itself leaves us in a position where if there's nothing to deliver, there's no point in developing a scheme that isn't going to deliver anything. So the constrained public funding perspective is what has held us back. The reason why we are turning our attention to this, and it may not look it, but it is actually genuinely very enthusiastic, is because we now have this opportunity to work with GB Energy and there's funding available, and we now see that there's something that we can do to impact how that is spent to the benefit of people here in Northern Ireland. Certainly as far as anything goes in terms of legislation, regulation, anything like that, we haven't been made aware of any specifics that are producing barriers. Not saying that there aren't any, and that's what the investigatory work is to find, is are there things there that we could be doing outside of
Quite
that?
what I'm asking. So you have an energy strategy team. And how long has that existed?
Well, the energy strategy team has been in existence since 2021. Well, 2022 really, since we started delivering the strategy. But it hasn't been delivering community energy, because community energy is something that we have been picking up over the last year or two. And what we've done is I have restructured slightly so that William has come in and he covers consumer protection, but also now community energy. And I have now got that extra resource, so it's a restructuring.
There hasn't been any form of community engagement in relation to your energy strategy?
There's been ad hoc engagement, and there's been engagement with departments in terms of developing the fuel poverty strategy and things like that, but there hasn't been any programme of engagement to date, and that's what we're working on. So last year we worked on the communications angle, and this year the...
It seems to me that you wouldn't have a framework if you didn't have any form of engagement.
We have had engagement. I mean, William's described the engagement we've been having, and we've had engagement with
that. Then why did that not lead to some form of contingency framework in order that you would have been much more ready and agile in relation to being able to identify projects, initiatives other than the further in education colleges into which you invested this revenue?
Our question, basically we didn't have the structure in place. I have been building that structure over the last 2 years. Last year the focus was on working with Consumer Council. We worked quite intensively with them to enable them to develop this active consumers and communities programme work, and this year we're working on the...
Last question. What have you done to remedy that now? Has a paper been commissioned? Has a critique been done? Has someone within the energy strategy team or at Williams' end been tasked with giving yourself the overview that you would need in the event that a similar windfall arises in the future?
Yes, because this is what our community energy framework is to do, and it's looking at all of the aspects that we need to have in place, and some of those may well be how would you deliver funding. In saying that, if there is, we're not ruling that out, but we are aware that there are barriers to that. Like, for example, if the department wants to deliver funding, we would need primary legislation to do that. So this is not an easy route to go down, to just develop a scheme and deliver it that way. So this is why we're commissioning this piece of work where we can sit down, look at what the Energy Saving Trust comes back with in terms of the data. Then we will sit down as a team and look at that and see how do we need to take this forward, what aspects do we need to address.
That sounds to me, maybe I'm the wrong end of the stick here, but that sounds to me like if a similar funding opportunity arose, similar to this, that you're not ready to actually ensure that that funding stream goes directly into community-led projects.
As I say, we would need primary legislation to be able to deliver that, and you know there's a process that we would have to follow. That's something that we need to look at. We cannot deliver primary legislation in a month or two. You know, it's not possible. So this is why we need this framework to say what can be done, how can we use other people's processes in other departments, in GBE Energy, etc., so that we're all working together on the same thing, rather than us sitting in a silo and saying we want to develop something and it's going to take us 3 years because we need primary legislation. So what we're looking to do with this framework, and I'm sorry I can't give you details on today because we haven't got that level of detail yet. They're only working on that and we're developing it over the next few months. But what we're looking to do is how can we deliver the quickest, most effective and efficient way that actually gets it out and actually collaborates with everybody and pulls all our resources and uses all our systems that we've got as effectively as possible, rather than us trying to develop just something that's only we will operate.
Thank you, Declan. Colleagues, can I thank you for that? Just a few final thoughts from me. So GBE Energy was announced in June 2024. And we in Northern Ireland need to catch up with that announcement and the processes as soon as possible. I don't blame any officials here today, but there are 125.15 full-time members of staff within the Department for the Economy's Energy Division. It's not up to who's sitting around this table to decide how that is made up and how that's allocated. But those who are at grade 3 level and higher in terms of how they decide where the focus of 125 full-time members of staff need to be within the Energy Division, may want to look at the evidence that's been provided today and provide you with the resource and support that you clearly need to be able to deliver some of those projects. I just had one issue, Emery, and you mentioned you'd been working on oil for the past couple of weeks. Could you just maybe outline the committee what you'd been doing on that and where we're at?
The vast majority of the work on that has been responding to machinery of government requests. We have been liaising with Consumer Council, Trade Standards and our own people to basically pull the data together, because the Minister has been talking with executive colleagues and etc. and other ministers. So it's been that level, it's been briefing work, and we've been involved in a meeting with CMA, etc.
Yeah.
So it's been that kind of
responsive
work.
stuff.
Yeah.
Get that. And are you involved in the £81 million delivery?
Yes, a member of my team is working on that. Again, that's something that was introduced by Treasury in the statement. It was in existence before the oil crisis happened, and it's basically we're getting to the stage where we're finalising the business case that Treasury have said they are prepared to sign up to, and so that we can actually then get that money delivered. And we have a delivery group that we're meeting with weekly of the suppliers, etc., working through the detail of how that actually might happen.
What's that looking like at the minute? What is that, 30 quid off everyone's electric bill for the next 3 years?
It's based on 75% of what is currently in the electricity bills to pay for the narrow. Yeah. So it can change very slightly, but it's going to be £30 around that. Each year.
That'll be a universal across every bill payer, every domestic bill payer.
It will, because Treasury have said that that's what the allocation is for, and we have absolutely no say over that.
And I've been having a discussion with the Community Foundation just in relation to, so someone like me, for example, I don't need £30 off my bill. There are people that I represent that could do with much, much more than £30 off their bill. And they were looking at, and I think they've been in contact with the department about how people who don't need this money off their bill can surrender that and that to the Community Foundation, who would then be able to run a grant scheme for people who are in real need of that support that then could apply to that.
We have had that discussion. The issue is, because Treasury are allocating it for electricity bills, that it wouldn't meet the requirements of their AME allocation if we did that. So and the opt out would also add a lot of complexity to the way that the suppliers. Because if it's surrendered by somebody within one supplier's end and then they switch to another supplier, there's a lot of complexity in there. So that would actually add to the costs of it. And as we all know, every cost that's incurred always ends up somewhere on a consumer's bill. So we want to keep it as straightforward and as simple as we can to do that. I mean, there always is the option of people voluntarily writing it. I suppose people don't write cheques anymore, but people voluntarily surrendering that and maybe going for a gift aid along with it or whatever, if they're surrendered to a charity, that's an option that's open to people, and it would be great if people did take that option, but it's not something that we can actually design into the scheme.
And have you been in discussions with the Community Foundation on this? My understanding is they'd contacted the department looking to see what support or advice they could offer.
Yes, I have been in touch with them twice now.
Okay. So where does it set? Have you told them no?
We've had meaningful engagement with them, and we listened to the proposal. There's a few actions that have been taken away from that, and both on both sides. So there'll be follow-up engagement in the next coming days or weeks.
Yeah, but what does that look? So what are you following up on if Anne-Marie's saying that it can't be done? What are you following up on?
We are looking at potential helping the Community Foundation explore a few options in regards to engagement with, for example, Consumer Council NI, and seeing what appetite might be amongst some of the electricity suppliers to work on their end.
No problem at all. Okay, with that, can I thank you, colleagues, very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Peter. So members, the committee content to write to the department just the chair's point about the job benefits, energy savings and cost saving benefit of the FE investment, And also for details of the department's CNI or Community Energy Engagement Programme, and further seeking further clarity around the Renewable Electricity Price Guarantee Scheme and the involvement of smaller electricity generators.
Great.
Additionally, then to write to GBE.
You can leave. Don't worry. Yeah. You don't need to hang about with that.
So waiting for the argument. So writing to GBE, just asking for further information on how the transitional fund has been used in Scotland and Wales, and also looking for the scoring matrix for the assessment of the energy developments and
just the evaluation process and how they will be able to support smaller projects in regions that haven't got sophisticated infrastructure in and around community energy.
It's agreed, Chairperson.
Agreed, colleagues. Item 9 then, members. The Department intends to lay statutory rule the Education, Student Support and Repayment Amendment Regulation Northern Ireland 2026. The proposed rule will be subject to negative resolution and will come into effect in the 26-27 academic year. The proposed rule also reportedly makes technical amendments to the Education Student Loan Repayment Regulation Northern Ireland 2009, aligning them with HMRC's Making Tax Digital Penalty Framework introduced under the Finance Act 2021. The Department briefed on the related consultation on the 18th of March, and the Minister elected to increase loans to £10,000 from 26-27 academic year, and the proposed rule gives effect to that. Do members have any questions on that? If not, the committee content to note the proposed rule, publish the relevant documentation on the committee's webpage and launch a call for evidence. Agreed. Item 10 then, the Statutory Parental Bereavement Pay, Employment and Earnings Amendment Regulation Northern Ireland 2026, that in order to support the passage of the Parental Bereavement Leave and Pay Miscarriage Regulations, the Department laid two further sets of technical regulations. SR 2026-74, the Statutory Parental Bereavement Pay, Employment and Earnings Amendment Regulation Northern Ireland 2026, is subject to confirmatory resolution, meaning it is already in effect, but is subject to subsequent confirmation resolution at plenary. Department officials briefed this committee and explained the rule provides for new definitions to facilitate the inclusion of miscarriage within parental bereavement leave and pay, as well as making consequential amendments to the leave regulations and the pay regulations to reflect the inclusion of miscarriage within the entitlements to parents' bereavement pay and leave. The committee agreed on the 18th of March to forego its usual processes, and also agreed that it was content for the rule to be made. I put to the committee that the Committee for the Economy has considered SR 2026-74, the Statutory Parental Bereavement Pay, Employment and Earnings Amendment Regulation Northern Ireland 2026, and subject to the ESR report, recommends that it's confirmed by the Assembly. Is that agreed? Okay, thank you. Correspondence, members, are we content to dispose of those as indicated in the index? Apart from Peter, did you want to speak?
Yeah, just number 20 is the committee content for the chairperson and me to meet informally with the CNAG to discuss the audit office programme.
There was one that you wanted to speak on.
Just about, yeah. We could take it under. Try and find it myself. Yes, I think it probably is. This was the A-level results day.
Yes.
So what we've got come back with is the State Examination Commission in the Republic of Ireland, they deal with the Leaving Cert, which tends to be much later. So there's a problem because it is so much later. The reason it's later is that in the Republic of Ireland they have a post-COVID, post-marking adjustment process, which they're phasing out over a number of years. They haven't phased it out yet. So when they do phase it out, they're saying that the Leaving Cert may then, results day may return to an earlier August date, which will then facilitate greater student mobility. But the State Examination Commission has declined to provide oral evidence on this subject. They've just written to us. They haven't said. So like the committee even wrote to the Minister in the Republic of Ireland and said, could you kindly persuade them to come along? And so they've declined to provide that, but they've given us an answer. So is the committee content to note? Or
yep. Did you want to say anything on this one?
Sorry. Yeah, also item 18, the Committee for Education has written to us on the General Teaching Council bill. Okay. There are situations where further education lecturers can be registered as teachers. So my wife, as you know, is formerly a further education lecturer. She's actually registered as a teacher as well with the General Teaching Council. So what this bill will do is really to reboot General Teaching Council. There were a lot of issues some years ago, Again, I don't know whether members feel strongly on this or whether you're content just to make a nil response and leave it to their colleagues in the Committee for Education to deal with it.
Happy to leave it to our friends in education if members are content. Okay, forward work programme, Peter.
So members, the petroleum bill was introduced the other day and we chatted briefly about the timeline. I'm expecting the utility regulator bill to be introduced very shortly. The other thing is on the budget decisions have not been agreed. We've asked the department for a briefing. They're not able to do that until the Minister makes decisions. Also next week we were expecting Go Succeed and the district councils to come along. They have not replied to us despite much urging, but the department has kindly agreed to step in and talk about credit unions. There was a big consultation on that, so and that sort of fits in with what Mr. McMullen mentioned it earlier, the role of community wealth building. So if members are happy with that, that's what we'll do. Members, can you just let me know if you're going to go to the Balmoral show on the 13th of May, because I'll have to get tickets and things for that, so please let me know. That's yes, okay, but it's some of the rest of you.
Yes as well.
Some of the rest of you need to come back. Other things then, very briefly, members, the Chief Scientific and Technology Advisor for the Executive is not able to come on the end of April as I wanted, and she's asked to come again on the 20th of May. And Invest NI, we're going to come along and talk about their trade and investment to us on the 27th of May, I think it was. They want to put that off to the 1st of July. So if I know members are disappointed, but it's better to get Invest NI people in the room rather than just the department based on previous experience. Sorry, I think Ms. Nicholl.
Just in relation to the Chief Scientific Officer, I was going to raise this anyway. I don't blame her because there hasn't been a published AI strategy yet. And I know I harp on about this all the time, but there is going to be serious economic disruption and there is so much potential and so much risk, and we need a strategy. And the fact that it's been sitting since December is appalling. Like so I just want to put that on record. We really need an AI strategy, and they don't know what to do about it. Like they keep asking, and it's really poor. So I don't blame the Chief Scientific Officer, because how can she come and talk about a strategy that hasn't been published? But then if we could even write to TEO and ask when they're going to publish it. I obviously have tabled lots of questions, but.
Rather than ask, let's urge them urgently to publish.
Thank you.
Chair, just for the clerk's planning purposes, the next 2 Wednesdays, the Windsor Framework Committee, of which a membership, and I know others are, will be in Brussels for next Wednesday, but we'll also be in Westminster taking evidence the following. There may be the opportunity to go in online, but I'm not sure, depending on timings. I know that, I don't know if it affects Kate, but I think Padraig is also a member of that committee, so it's just for your purposes.
So if members would then let me know if they are not going to be with us next week and the week after, as soon as you possibly can, so that would be handy. Thanks, Chairperson. That's all I have in the forward work programme.
And members have any other business? The only thing I would say is that I would be keen if the department could confirm as soon as possible this £81 million mechanism that they're currently working on. And I do think that more effort needs to be put into ensuring that people who are able to surrender their £30 discount are able to do so.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you, colleagues, and we'll see you all next week. Much appreciated.
Thanks, members.
Committee Room 30, sound. Committee Room 30, sound. Committee Room 30, sound. Committee Room